grocery shopping, like clean house together, and you're like, I love you. Like lighting candles. Making the bed. That's a big one. I've never made the bed in my life. Making the bed with someone, it's like, and then you can like crawl in together. It's really nice.
I try to make mine every once in a while.
Mine looks like a mess.
It's good to, I don't know, I heard someone talk about it one day saying like it's a good way to just start your day by already accomplishing something. Like, yeah, you made your bed at least.
Yeah.
And it is nice to crawl into a bed that's made.
That's what Maverick was doing with all this Wim Hof stuff. Basically, this guy takes like ice baths all the time and like these like really crazy breathing techniques, and it's really good for your brain, like depression and stuff. It's like you already have the worst part of your day. You take a cold shower in the morning, you already have the worst part of your day out of the way. You can like face anything.
That's what my dad does. He takes cold showers.
I rinse my hair with cold water, so I don't take full-on cold showers. I just rinse my hair with cold water because it's good.
I feel like it would piss me off, and then I would just be pissed for the rest of the day because I started my day shitty.
Yeah. I can't take a cold shower. I hate it so much. Even after we got gassed to like work at the prison, and so whenever we did the like tear gas.
Yeah, we're chatting about the book. We'll start in about a minute and a half.
Whenever we did that, though, we had to take a cold shower, and I did not. I just suffered. I like
rinsing my hair with it. It's
like,
really good for your hair.
Yeah, so we had to walk through tear gas, and then we had to do secondhand exposure to really hardcore pepper spray. So OC, which is really concentrated. You can feel each little speck of the spray touching your eye.
Ugh. I got sprayed by pepper spray once. Not like by somebody, but I mean like my brother. He was messing around. Did he spray you
right in the face?
Yeah, sprayed me right in the face with it.
Never,
and,
ever.
I was like a kid too. I was probably 8 years old.
How'd that go for you?
I spent the whole night crying. I tried like rubbing my eyes, and it just made my hands and arms burn. It was horrible.
See, that's so much better, though, than, like, walking through tear gas. That's the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Felt like I was dying.
Ugh.
Like, you can't breathe, and so you're gasping for breath, and that makes it worse.
Ugh.
It's so awful. And then you just start puking, and, like, your nose is running, and then you start puking more. Oh, it's so bad.
Ugh. Yeah, that's what Don't Have Twitch says. Wait, you got tear gas for training?
Yeah. Man, I worked at a prison. I had to get tear gas. It was so bad. Oh my god, it made me want to kill myself.
The worst part is that they make you go over and kiss somebody else who's just been throwing up and gotten tear gassed and all that.
Man, but we had to like walk in lines, and so people in front of me were throwing up, and it was windy, and so their throw up was like coming towards me.
Ugh.
And so I'm like dodging it and also throwing up.
I can hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Can you guys hear me?
I was reading on Quora a thing about tear gas training in the military.
Yeah.
And I guess some people's like tactics, they immediately think they're like, well, I'm just gonna go into the tear gas chamber and hold my breath through the entire thing.
Yeah, you
and
can't.
So there's two problems with that. One, you're not gonna be able to hold your breath through the entire ordeal. And as soon as you can't hold your breath anymore, you gotta take a deep breath.
Oh yeah.
And that's gonna be even worse.
Yeah.
And then another thing is that the instructors will come up to you and they'll notice who's attempting to hold their breath. Mm-hmm. And they'll force you to they say, where were you born? What's your home address? What's your social security number? Say them all to me. And like they'll force you to talk.
They made us sing happy birthday to this girl because it was her birthday. And we were all just choking so much. But there was a guy that was in the military next to me, and he was, like, walking away. And they said if we, like, broke, like, we were connected, like, with our arms. And they said if we let go, the two people that let go would have to go again. And the guy next to me was in the army, and he started walking the opposite direction. And so I'm, like, grabbing him, and he's just walking the other way. And he's, like, choking. I'm like, no, we have to do this.
Oh, no.
Yeah. My dad had to do that with him when he was in the Marines. And he was like, I had, like, 100-pound backpack on my back. And he was like, I couldn't breathe.
Oh.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's so bad.
They say the best tactic is to just go in any of those circumstances and just like take very controlled breathing.
Yeah.
And try and take very shallow breaths and not breathe too deeply so
Yeah.
that you minimize the amount that goes in and out.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because I was like trying to not just shoot snot out of my nose.
Oh,
So I was
yeah.
like, I'm just gonna beast through this, and I'm gonna suck in all my snot just like every couple of seconds. And so I'd be like, and then I would immediately start vomiting.
Ooh.
God.
Yes.
Go work in a prison, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
No one said it would be fun.
No
Everyone
one
said it
says
would
that.
be bad, and I did it anyway.
I think Ryan is working at the prison now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He's gonna quit so fast. It's bad.
Yeah,
no one
it's
likes
not,
it.
It's not good at all. It's
Ryan.
awful. Okay, so we're gonna get started with the old book
met
club.
another-
The old book club.
You sing with this
We're
pregnant
glad you can
girl.
join us. Don't have Twitch. It's good to see you, man. So we're gonna go to the main. Heck yes, we're looking great. Look how handsome we all are.
Aw, so handsome.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay. So we're gonna do the intro now. This is the Fall Book Club. What's up, my guys? We're glad you can join us. We talk about books usually on Saturdays and usually at 8 p.m. But today is a special exemption because I have a performance tonight, so we got to do it early.
Yep.
We're talking about Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and we have so far discussed the entire book, chapters 1 through 12. In their entirety to the best of our ability, and we are now today going to make the subject of discussion the movies versus the books. The two movies that we did have, they were free on YouTube, so anybody can go watch them if you want to and join in on this discussion. If you're watching the recording,
I watched one of them on Vudu and one on the Criterion channel because they were just better quality.
yeah, really,
I was like, I don't need
Yeah.
quality. I just want to watch
that's
the movie.
I
that's a
mean,
good
Karen,
call. Yeah,
I like during like quiet parts, I'd like skip through like 30 seconds, like ding, like,
Really?
yeah, yeah. I was
It's tough sometimes when you're like kind of an impatient movie watcher or it's like a chore to get through or something. You want to do that. I always try to refrain from doing that because I feel like I'm like doing a disservice to the people who made it or something.
I
I don't
am
know.
worn out from that, from
I don't
Lord of the
blame you.
Flies. Like, I'm over it.
I feel the same. I try not to skip through it, but you know,
Yeah.
it's hard. I actually didn't even make it all the way through the 1963 film.
Really?
Ooh gosh, yeah, because it was I just didn't have time like today. But
Gotcha.
I was like I woke up really sick this morning. It was bad. Like so I've been on like keto diet for a long time.
Dude, I was trying to do that, but I don't have any self-control.
I've been on it for 3 weeks since we started the book club. I've been on, like, after the first meeting, I was on a strict keto diet. I haven't had any bread, and last night I went to the cast party and I drank two ales and had like 4 slices of pizza. I got so sick by the time that I left the restaurant that I threw up outside, and then I woke up this morning and I felt like I had like drank myself into an oblivion.
Your body just
Yeah,
like
sugar.
adapted to no bread.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
And it was like I had a terrible reaction to it. Like I shouldn't have felt that hungover because I wasn't drunk, and
Well, yeah.
it was odd. So anyway, that's my excuse. Also, thanks for the compliment about the hat. This is a good hat. So did everyone watch both of the 63 and the 90?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how going forward, we'll just refer to it as the 63 and the 90 or whatever,
Okay.
because they're two
Yeah.
different movies that were made.
I almost watched, like, they made a documentary about the 63 one where they all got together like 35 years later. All the kids did.
Oh, really?
They went
That's
back to the
cool.
island.
That's
And
cool.
that was the one thing I didn't have time for. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to see what this is and how they interact with each other. But
Honestly, I think at the end of all of this, we're gonna be pretty sick of of Lord of the
I'm
Flies.
already
We
sick
are
of it.
experts.
I was sick of it one chapter in.
Because
sucks to your Lord of the Flies.
we
Yeah.
have
Tell people.
been watching so much Lord of the Flies. But okay, so we'll start with the 1990s film in comparison to the book.
I wrote
The book was
some
released in
intense notes
52,
on
right?
it.
I think
I don't remember.
that sounds right.
I have the notes in my brain.
I wrote some pretty sassy notes about the
Did you?
90
Okay.
version.
I did too.
This
Some of them.
54.
is it 94 version or is it
90.
90 version?
90.
Okay, so that movie was like if someone read the cliff notes on Lord of the Flies and then made a movie about it.
Yeah.
No, it's like
They're like, I'm
if
gonna do my own thing.
Someone heard a loose, like, drunk rendering of the plot, and they thought I could make a movie
It's
of
like
that.
it's like the LaCroix of Lord of the Flies.
a hint of the
But
details.
they kept
Yeah.
doing things in that movie that made absolutely no sense.
Yeah. So I'll do an overview of some of the things for that movie. First of all, they assumedly crashed in the sea and then swam into the land.
They were
Yeah.
on a boat.
Yeah.
They rode in on a boat and then had the audacity later in the movie to say, I wish we had a boat.
Well,
Oh, the raft.
yeah.
Where did
Yeah,
that
this
boat
raft.
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, it was a raft.
And there was an adult there, this random adult that was made
Mhm.
up,
Yeah, I guess
and
the
they're
pilot.
American. They're American.
That's the thing. It takes place in modern day, like for the time, I guess, 1990. And yeah, they're American instead of
They have
British.
glow sticks.
I thought
Yeah.
that was an interesting.
They all knew each other already, I guess.
Yes.
And there's no like outbreak of war or anything suggested in this movie. It's just like a bunch of kids.
Well, they did
that
talk
get
about the
shipwrecked.
Russians a little bit.
They did
Yeah.
say that, or like if we get kidnapped by Russians.
So weird.
Because
And I wasn't sure if that was more like
it's kind of
where
like
the island was located. That's the reason why they were talking about Russia.
it
Or
might be
No.
like Cold War.
Yeah, it was
time.
I think it was a Cold War era reference, because that's a little bit after the time that they were.
Yeah.
The movie was made, and they do that a lot too, because like when they first made the movie Red Dawn, that was
Yeah.
a Cold War era
yeah,
movie, and then whenever they made the new Red Dawn,
it's like Korea.
They changed
It's
it to
North
North
Korea.
Korea, right?
or
Yeah.
China. I think it's like a
China probably.
offshoot of China, some
Was
it?
like militant
No, it's
branch.
true.
Yeah,
That
so they
one
just
was
switched it to.
terrible.
It's North
I think
Korea.
it was originally supposed to be Korea, and then they decided to like change it because they didn't want to upset the market over there.
Oh.
Yeah,
The old one was good. The new one was.
Or maybe the opposite of that. Maybe it was supposed to be China, but then they switched it to Korea
Yeah,
so
I
that they
think
wouldn't
it is
upset the
Korea,
Chinese
'cause
audience.
I've watched
I
it.
think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess back in the day, like in the 80s, we didn't give a crap about the Russians. We were
Yeah.
like, yeah, you
I
guys
don't
can
think
be.
that
I
was
don't
a
think we
big
do
thing.
now either.
Yeah,
we
no.
still would make movies where they're the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, I think the Germans are picking up the slack on that one as well for the long.
Yeah.
For the
Well,
last, like,
anytime there's like
Oh,
an
yeah.
evil
70 years.
scientist in a movie, they're always German.
yeah.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So these kids in the 1990 movie, they don't have accents, right?
They're
No,
American.
not at
they're
all.
they're
American,
American
but hardly
because
any
there was a
little ones
reference
I
towards
noticed.
Colorado.
Mhm.
They all looked
Really
around
not
the
any-
same age.
Really not any little ones in this movie.
No, there's not. They're
They're all
all around
about-
the same age. They know each other. But it just bothered me because what really starts is that Piggy and Ralph are like by themselves, like in the book.
Yeah.
But they're all just together. And then they were already assembled in the beginning, like without the conch. And then the conch just kind of shows up and they're like, oh, like an assembly? They keep calling it the assembly. I don't know. It's just so off of the like actual storyline that
Yeah.
it was really
Yeah.
hard
I
for
will
me to
say-
watch.
I did not hate this movie. I
I
thought that
The
it was-
1990?
I thought it was a decent adaptation, but I did think that it had some problems with it. But I think it did a lot of things right. Anyway,
was
I guess,
easier to
I guess we
watch.
can
It was-
compare the two movies after
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
discussed
It
both
wasn't
of them.
super dry.
It
It
was
was
not
just-
difficult to watch.
No,
No.
if
Some
I had
parts
just watched that,
didn't make sense though.
like
And
if I
that's
hadn't read the
problem
book, I would have liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right, then that's true because the first time I ever did like enjoy the story of Lord of the Flies, it was through the 1990 movie.
I think the main problem with this movie, this adaptation, is that the third act is the weakest part of this movie, where it kind of just like runs through everything
it goes
that
really
happens
fast.
towards
Yeah.
the end really quickly, where
Mhm.
the impact of everything that happens and what it builds up to doesn't quite hit you the way it does with the book at all, because
Yeah.
you don't have time to really like feel for the characters or feel for Ralph, definitely what he's going through before suddenly the movie's just over.
Yeah, it's very quick. It's
Yeah.
it's expedited to the nth degree, and there's so many things that are left out that you don't. I found that Ralph was nicer to Piggy in the movie.
Way nicer.
Even
Like
the
Yeah.
like
the
Way
like
nicer.
first meeting, Jack wasn't even mean to Piggy, and I even put that on there. That literally, like, Piggy starts talking, and Jack's like, "Oh yeah, what he's saying makes sense. Oh yeah," like he's being so nice, and then whenever he is mean to Piggy, Ralph said, "It's because you're new," and I wrote that down because I was like,
yeah.
"What does that mean? He's new to
I
what?"
guess
like,
new
to
to
the
the group
Boy
of
Scout
kids,
group?
like
I don't
before they
even know.
crash.
Yeah.
maybe?
So, like, that's why I wrote it
I don't
down,
know.
because I was like, what does that mean? What's
Yeah,
he
they
new
don't really
to?
clarify
He washed
that.
up on the island a little
Oh.
bit later. He's like, oh,
What-
sorry, you're new.
You're new.
What I didn't like is that they were all just one group. When like it was a really big deal that like Jack married who had his
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
like choir boys, and they became the hunters, and like they became like because they were already like pledged to him. But
Yeah.
where it turned, like they started electing Ralph, because they were like, well, he's, what did they call him, Colonel? He's Colonel.
Yeah,
they
he was
said
the
he's
high-
Colonel.
He was the
Yeah.
highest ranking.
He's
Yeah.
Colonel. So
It doesn't do a good job establishing the kids and their dynamic with each other. It's kind of like it is just a big group of kids, and you get the sense that Ralph is the main character,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
Simon
Yeah.
isn't even a part of it.
he
Yeah,
is. He's not
he's-
that important.
He shows up like once whenever
Yeah.
he finds that guy in the cave, and then his death scene is just the weirdest thing ever. It made no sense
Oh,
because they
man,
know
yeah.
what glow sticks are. They
Yeah.
had them at the beginning, and so they see someone running up with a glow stick.
What I got from that is like they've been, I mean, I don't know, like they've been separated from civilized life.
But you could clearly see
And-
it was him.
I mean,
Yeah.
the way it was shot poorly, I do think. I think
Yeah.
maybe like the idea behind it, I could see what they were going for.
Like they should have tried to portray, the kid's vision. Like, what did they see? Like,
Yeah,
whenever
something
it
like that.
happened, and then when they see it, like, it's like, oh, maybe it is a monster, and they're like murdering this grotesque monster,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
like this glowing green monster or something, and then whenever it cuts out, it fades, and it's like Simon dead on the beach.
They could have done that because I've seen movies before that have done it like that before, where you think one thing is attacking them or something is happening. And, man, the movie Tropic Thunder did that, where whenever he's getting attacked by the panda, and it's like it shows the teeth and its claws and stuff, and he starts killing it, and then the lightning flashes, and it's a baby panda.
Oh my gosh.
And that
so they
movie
could have
did it
done
really
that.
well.
As far
Yeah.
as
So
like
they could have done that.
the election goes, because we'll try and move in like in the order that everything
yeah.
happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the election was one of the first really big things that I noticed that was like totally downplayed. Like it just happened so casually.
Yeah.
Nobody really, they didn't give it the due that it had. Like Jack wasn't even upset that he wasn't
Yeah,
chief.
he
Yeah,
didn't
Jack
even
was
care.
supportive of it.
He was like, okay.
He was like, I guess you're chief now. He was like, I guess you win the election, like,
Yeah.
and just kind of patted him on the back, like they were friends
They're just
before. They're
buddies.
buddies, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even
And
bad.
Jack wasn't even like to like like he was not as evil as like Book Jack.
No, and
Like,
even
Yeah.
like
No.
anytime anyone died, he looked like he was like concerned about it.
One big thing is I didn't know who any of the other kids were supposed to be. Like
No.
Roger, for the longest time, I was like,
he
I don't
just
know
showed
which
up
kid
at the
is-
end.
I don't know which kid is
Yeah.
Roger. I assumed it was the black kid because there's one
I thought that was Maurice.
person of color in this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was. But I had no idea who that.
And then
Kid was
Sam and
supposed to
Eric,
be.
like they didn't have an important role at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
like,
didn't do hardly anything.
No.
They really just destroyed like a lot of it. So whenever I
Mm-hmm.
do talk with anybody about the 1990s film in comparison to the book, that's the one thing that everyone always says, that it's terribly disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
And like to the point where it's almost not even the same story anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I
Like-
do think that they got down really, really well is the look of the island. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is almost exactly how I pictured it
Mm-hmm.
in the book. Like,
I
that's
thought
right
the
in
old
middle.
one
I
was
thought
better.
it was bad. I even
Really?
wrote
Because their
layout of island is super weird.
It
Oh,
just
man,
was
I thought it
random.
just flat. And whenever
No,
they went up to
there were
make
no rocks.
Yeah, whenever they went up to make the fire, it just kind of felt like a long plane.
Really?
That it was all just the same level. They just went over here to this tree, set up a fire, and just walked right back. It was so strange.
But the one thing that they really didn't need to do was the random adult. I mean, they could have done.
I get it, because
so
I feel like
weird.
they weren't focusing on any sort of like war aspect. So no like person parachuting down. Instead, it was like, okay, we got to have an adult, like a man, end up on this island somehow. Let's just have him show up with the kids. But yeah, for the longest time, I was like, why is this dude here?
I was like really upset because it was just changed the plot.
Yeah, there's just a random old man who's with the kids.
It was such a big thing for them to be like, they had no grown-ups around.
Yeah.
Oh, and Simon was like in charge of him. They were like, he can't, like, Simon, you have to sit next to him and take care of him or he's going to get up and like run around.
And he does eventually just get up and leave and go find a cave. And I was like,
yeah.
Why?
It was
So
super
strange.
weird.
What is your purpose of leaving all these kids?
They killed that man. Like, he was like hanging out there like, you know what? We're just going to put a mosquito net on you.
Yes, it was so weird. And they were
out.
like, you guys need to go get food and water. And I'm like, are you guys like giving him something to drink? Are you
right?
Like, are you
At
guys
one
like
point he asks
giving
for
him food?
water, and then like Simon sees him asking for water, and Simon goes and finds water, but it never shows him like give it to the guy. He just goes back and says, "Hey guys, I found water." And it's like, did you give any to that dude who was begging for it as he's dying?
Yeah, it was
so
rough.
weird.
They were like, he has a fever, like we need to take care of him, and it was just such a weird.
And then they're all telling horror
subplot.
stories right next to him. I'm like, if I was like on the verge of death, I don't know if I'd want a pack of people like surrounding a campfire right next to me talking about horror stories and stuff. That would make me feel
So
very,
odd.
very
I guess
like.
the only thing that you can come to a conclusion about the pilot, so just to be really distinct about that, is there's a pilot, he lived, and the kids drug him onto shore, which is like pretty strong. He's a full grown man. So
Yeah.
they're pretty
Not just like onto shore, but they
Yeah.
pull him up out of the water.
out of the water. So
I-
they must be very good
yeah.
swimmers.
I think his main purpose is to become the beastie.
Yeah.
That's it. I didn't like it.
They just needed, they
was
needed to find a
bad.
way for someone
I liked
to take
the
the place
idea-
of the parachuting man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of like that dread. Like there's absolutely no adults here. Like absolutely, like they don't know what to do. Like, you know, they're only fending for themselves. They're not like taking care of anybody or whatever. They're on their own. So
Yeah.
I
They didn't
like
even
that.
try and nurse him back to health, though.
I know.
Like,
Can you imagine
That's what I
just
was
having
saying.
a fever and you
That's
just
what I
have
was saying.
this
He's
net
asking
over
for
your face?
water, and they never show Simon give it to him. And I was
Yeah.
like, what?
like
He's
they
only-
just
doing?
let him dehydrate.
Well, his only reason for even being in the movie was to be in that cave later. So for the whole movie, they kind of just forget he exists, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we should like get back to him and show that he's alive, guys. Guys, see him? There's an adult here."
Why couldn't he have just
And so
gotten
they,
to the
like-
island separate from the kids and crawled into that cave, and then they come across
Yeah.
the person who's like just trying to survive but clearly injured
I
in
don't
this
know.
cave?
Could have like
rather than,
floated
like-
to that cave or whatever from
Yeah,
the wreckage.
just anything else.
It
like
makes
maybe he had
no
enough
sense.
strength to get himself there.
Let's
but-
write a Lord of the Flies movie, and we'll just
Guys,
do it
let's
how
do
we
it.
want to do it.
Yes. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest. I don't even know. So you said that they had to use the pilot that semi-survived to be the beast to take the place of the parachute man.
I think it was because they're not like there's not a heavy emphasis in this movie on like a war going on outside of where these kids are at. So like having someone parachute down, I think
Right.
just didn't really fit or didn't feel right.
There wouldn't have been a dogfight overhead that resulted in
Exactly.
his crash.
So
Yeah.
they just thought, well, let's do it this way instead. But I do think it would have been better if the pilot had survived enough to get to that cave separate from the kids, though, and then they just come across him and kill an innocent person.
Yeah.
Like he had washed up somewhere else on the island from the crash, and then like crawled in that cave and died like a
Yeah.
short while
Yeah, he
later.
coulda just died.
So he was more
Maybe they don't even
decomposed
kill
and
him.
stuff.
It just,
Yeah,
That
and that
would have
would've
been way
that
better.
would have been way better.
Yeah.
Guys have figured it out.
I did think the first thing I really noticed that was different in this is that Ralph is wearing like a sling on his arm when you first meet
Yeah.
him.
Much different.
And
I know
for,
because
like-
he's injured.
Yeah, I was reading online about it, and the whole reason he has it is because the kid who was cast in the part fell out of a tree like 2 weeks before they were supposed to start filming, and he broke both of his wrists. I guess he broke the left one a lot worse than the right one. So they wrote like a sling for his character into the beginning part of the movie so that he's like got this injury, but he's getting over it.
That's crazy.
Dang, that sucks.
I feel like the conch wasn't like nearly symbolic or important enough in this movie.
Oh,
like,
it didn't even matter.
It didn't even matter. Yeah, it wasn't that special.
Yeah. That is the main problem with this movie, is that it does not give the focus that it needs to on the most important elements.
Yeah.
Like the Lord of the Flies is not.
I didn't even.
It's not even a big thing.
It's
like a couple of seconds that he sits there and he stares at it, and then it goes black. And I'm like, And then he goes and is like finds the beastie, and finds out that it's the dead person.
Yeah. So Simon's whole thing is like terrible. Like Simon is a really good character in the book, and they just gypped him completely.
He has none of his character development and like really defining moments.
You know that weird lizard scene where he's like makes friends with this lizard, and then he watches them like hunt, and they like stab the lizard, and he's
I was so sad about that. I'm partial toward lizards and like amphibians and stuff. So like frogs, I was like, bro, you just stabbed that lizard boy. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I was almost more sad about that than the pilot.
Think it's got any protein in it?
What was really intense is when what's his name? Jack cuts the head off the pig. I was like,
that was real.
I think this kid is really hacking a head off of a pig.
First of all, that would have taken so long to get it with that knife that he was using.
Man, the way that pig was moving, I was like, this is definitely a real creature here.
Yeah, those pigs were actually like as big as how I imagined them.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like tiny little pigs. They were like actually like boars, which like that helped me. That was a nice part, that they were like actually like massive pigs that they were like hauling around and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a good part. So a character that's gone that we discover after the fire. First of all,
there's
not really a fire.
And
there's no Splotchy Boy.
They light a tree on fire, and I think that didn't happen in the old movie.
No.
Like they didn't even have the fire in the old movie.
Yeah, I put one of my notes. Nothing in this movie is given time to develop. The importance of the conch, the glasses, and the fire, any of the characters, the hunting, and the Lord of the Flies, like the whole defining aspect of it.
Yes, like they don't even talk about it.
The Lord of the Flies is not in this movie.
And I think that it could have been really well done.
Exactly.
Where it could have, like, they could have actually like done some creepy stuff with it.
Like film.
I think it's fine to like update the story to modern times, and I think it's fine to Americanize it. You know, make the kids American kids.
Yeah.
That's totally cool. But I think in some aspects of it, they really did do a good job. I think the casting is pretty great, but yeah, all of these things that you really need to keep in a story that's based around this book are just not there.
There's no sucks to your asthma.
I was waiting for it.
No asthma, like nothing like that, because they're not English, so they don't say asthma. Like they say asthma.
That's true.
Yeah,
I guess it wouldn't make sense.
It was said with an American accent.
They don't
sucks to your asthma.
Yeah,
they could say that.
I mean,
I also didn't think the music at the very start is really like 90s and terrible.
Yeah.
And at the very end, in the middle, it's all right.
It's like orchestral.
It has too much of the like marching, like military drum.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't know, it's just really cheesy at the start. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's fine, like all the way through for the most part. It's just that start and the end. I was like, this does not set the
it was a
mood
little
at all.
like happy like soundtrack at the beginning, and everyone's like just chilling, which I'm like,
it sounded
that's
like
not appropriate.
Military music written for an episode of Goosebumps or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, another weird aspect, the survival knife.
Yeah.
That, like, in place of Piggy's glasses, they have the knife that they call a survival knife, and everybody's just like, Jack goes and steals the knife instead of stealing the glasses.
Right.
Yeah, that was strange.
I didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
Because he had the knife. He was in possession of the knife the entire time in the book.
And I feel like
and it was his knife.
Replacing it, and he's already got a knife when they're on the island. He's got a little pocket knife, and then he also steals that. And it's like, why do you need that, dude?
I don't know.
There's,
Strange.
I think changing this item that they're fighting over to a weapon kind of is a little bit of a disservice to the story. I don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly weird.
Ooh, Piggy cries a lot in this. Like, which, like...
I did feel like the first time he cried was the first time I actually felt like he was Piggy or like felt sympathetic for him.
Yeah.
And after that, like that moment on, I thought, okay, he's a lot closer to the book. Because before that, he's like mouthing off constantly and telling Jack to shut his face and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he wasn't like this level-headed, like very clear kid.
Yeah, he's just like another kid.
But the one thing they do is like when in the first meeting, and he's like, nobody knows we're here because we didn't go where we were going. But it was super weird. At the end of that question, he was like, we didn't get where we were going. And someone's like, where were we going? And I'm like, how do you not? And he was like, we were going home. I'm like, why would you ask that? Like, how did you not know where you were going?
Did you guys notice
Like-
in both movies, instead of a boat that they saw on the horizon, it was a helicopter?
It was a plane.
It's a plane in the 63 movie.
It was a helicopter,
And then a
in the
helicopter in the
1990s.
90.
Why'd they change it in both versions?
I'm sure it was like what they had access to.
Yeah,
Oh,
would it
they were
be
like, we
easier
don't
to
have a
make-
ship.
Yeah, it's like, well, we can actually get this thing a little bit easier than we can get the other. I don't know why they would have better access to a plane or a helicopter than a boat when they're filming on a beach. But
Because I feel like a boat is easier to explain why it didn't see them. But whenever you're in a helicopter and you're like looking all around because you're flying something, and it was pretty close to the island,
and they're like
they could
right there
see
out in the open.
them.
Those kids were clearly like,
Yeah, because
where else is that like helicopter pilot?
Because
be
that
looking?
area where the fire was, there were no trees around it, so they're just out in the open. So how did this helicopter pilot not see them?
And
I
it
don't
just
know.
it was super downplayed. Like whenever Jack was hunting and he like the fire went out, like it was like a big kind of a big deal, but it wasn't like nearly as grave as like the book made it, where it's like you let the fire go out. Like,
Yes.
and it
That's
would,
what again, like they just don't put quite enough emphasis on
And
anything that really means something in this story.
They cut an entire character out. Splotchy Boy is not.
Yes, he's not in it. He's not in
is
the
he
old
in the
one.
Yeah, he's not in the.
He's
not in
No.
either. Of
He's
them.
not in either
And
of the
there's
movies.
there is a big fire and it catches the tree on fire, but it's not like a huge deal where everyone's freaking out
Yeah.
about
They're
it.
just like, oh no, but and
It
then,
just
It's
kinda
like, why did you
happens.
include this if it doesn't really affect these kids?
They
in
literally
any
burned
way?
a
way.
tree down for nothing. It was like a real tree.
I did like the songs that they sang when they were in groups, like as military kids.
Yeah.
It's like the Cadillac song.
I did. I like the songs.
Yes.
Yeah, those were really
My
cool.
Che-
It's been the
what is it,
60
my Chevrolet? Or does he say Cadillac? Is that what it is?
in the
Maybe it's
63
like-
film.
Well, in the 1990 movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess
Oh,
I missed.
I like them. They were singing like
They
a
did have
song
other
about
songs.
a Cadillac or something. They were
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, that's right. They were doing like military cadence with
Yeah.
the Cadillac.
The other one was like Kyrie, Kyrie, like kept singing
Yeah,
it over and
it's
over
like
again.
a Orthodox.
man, that made it.
It was
I
like
like
Lord be
that.
with
I like
us, or
that.
Lord
Yeah.
bless
version
us.
because it
Yeah.
made them
Which was
just
kind of
seem
funny
so
and
dumb,
ironic,
like
I
dumb
guess.
little choir.
The terrible shit that they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the Cadillac. I also liked, since it was updated, the kids wondering like what was on TV at that time, and
Oh yeah.
I bet Alf's getting into all sorts of crazy shenanigans
Yeah.
back home or something.
Yeah.
Like that seems pretty true to what kids would be talking about on an island.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so strange to see like the decisions that they made in these movies. Like it seems like one of the big establishing points whenever they say like, this is Ralph, he's the main character in the book, and this is Jack, and he is going to be the villain. And they do that mostly like during the voting process.
Yes.
And this voting process was just like, who wants to do a vote? Show of hands. And it was like there was no intensity in it. The kids did it like kind of half-assed, and then like Jack was like, oh, I guess you're the chief now. And
Yeah.
like literally like that.
It was
and I
just
was
like
very
very
supportive of
nonchalant.
his
He was
friend.
Yeah.
even smiling though, wasn't he? He was like, "Oh, guess you're chief."
Yeah, he says
Ha-ha.
it
Yeah.
in a
he was just
joking
fine
way.
with it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really get that authority complex across. That Jack
Yeah.
already has this authority complex, like that he's this head choir boy or whatever that we know him to be. So he's not an evil character. He's never as bad Like, I mean, he's kind of bad, but he's never as bad as like the book jacket.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to say like, look how wild these kids have gotten. Even like these two kids that were best friends, one of them turned against his best friend and became like this evil kid. But I mean, there's just no reason to change the story in that way. It's like, just start this rivalry from the very beginning and let it degrade from there, rather than like establishing them as buddies and then having it fall apart. It was just kind of needless, a needless step in the relationship between the two.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know who Roger was supposed to be until the dance around the fire, but he did sharpen the spear at two ends earlier to put the pig's head on.
I finally understand
Me
why they were like, we
too.
sharpened the stick at two ends, because they were gonna cut Ralph's head off and put it on the pike and offer it to the beastie.
Just now?
Yes, I didn't understand that when I was reading it, because they were like, they sharpened a stick at two ends. I was like, oh, I guess they're just gonna kill him. But then it clicked for me that I was like, oh, they did that with the pig. Like, they're gonna offer his head.
Honestly,
we-
I did not get that either.
Yeah,
while
I
reading
didn't
the
get
book.
that from the book.
I
And-
thought.
Did you get it?
Not
Book?
during the book. I thought it was gonna be like a Darth Maul situation where it's just a weapon.
Yeah,
I
where it
guess
was
that
just
was my
both
fault.
ends.
Just as a
I
weapon.
talked about that a lot
expecting that-
last time, right?
I thought they were
Yeah,
gonna
we
like
did.
roast him over a fire.
Oh, it was like a spit.
Yeah, and so like the next step in their devolving was cannibalism or something. I didn't know if that's what it was implying or what, but yeah.
I really understood it like in the 63 movie. Like, it clicked for me, and I was like, oh, that's why they were gonna
Right.
sharpen it at both ends, so
I
they could
got-
stick it in the ground.
Whenever I heard them say like, "Oh, sharpen it at both ends," I was like, they were gonna cut his head off.
Yes,
it
like-
did. It finally clicked.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
And then what happens to Simon is so brutal. It is like filmed in a really kind of stupid way for them mistaking him for the beastie.
Yeah.
But I did like their dance and how it's kind of filmed in slow motion.
Yeah.
Like these kids just go wild, and Roger running on all fours
Yeah.
playing the
That was
pig.
like
But
the
Piggy
only
and
scene
Jack,
I
like,
liked. I thought
they're
that
over
was
there-
Really good.
Piggy and Ralph are standing there just like, whatever.
Yeah, they're not involved.
They're
and
not
it's
involved.
Like, Ralph needs to be involved.
That
in
was
this
a
'cause
really
it's
big
very integral
implication.
to his character.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
He slips for a moment, and even Piggy is like witnessing it and is dancing
Kind of part
with
of the
them.
dance, yeah.
So that should have happened in the movie, but
Mm-hmm.
again, like, this movie doesn't really know what it's doing as far as like character development at all.
Yeah.
But man, after they all clear away from Simon, and you just see his body on the beach, and his back is just riddled with holes from the
Yeah,
spears.
that was pretty good.
I was like, dang.
And then it just floated,
is-
and he's like
this is
in
violent.
the water.
Yeah.
It's over. Yeah.
Ugh, I wanted
I
them.
like that.
It would have been even gorier too if they did the description in the book whenever Simon attempts to like pull himself up a little bit off of the beach, and then he like lets out like a big throw up of blood, and then he just
Ooh.
falls and collapses.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Man, they didn't even have him like say anything whenever he was getting killed. I think in both movies, he just kind of
I know,
let it
he-
happen. Because like in the book, he's like, "There's a guy."
Well, he
He's
is
like, it's a
running up
man,
to
it's
them
not
with
a
the
beast,
glow
it's just
stick,
a
and then they
man.
immediately turn and see him. They see this like glow stick,
Yeah.
and they're like, "That's the beast! Kill it!"
Mm-hmm.
But
So he
even
doesn't really
like
get a
in the
chance
book,
to.
whenever they're all like stabbing at him, he like starts blocking his face and saying like, "There's a man up there. It's me."
It's me.
And they're all just
yes.
like
Yeah.
just stabbing him.
What was the point of Ralph and Piggy finding an accordion?
So random. It just like
idea.
floated ashore, and they're like, he's like,
What's that?
It was like it was the first moment where I felt like we were finally getting to know these characters and like make them feel like real people rather
Yeah.
than just like nameless kid number whatever. But it was like, why did they invent this scene with an accordion when you could have had any of these scenes from the book where they're spending time together
Like,
to
making
establish their
friends.
dynamic?
Yeah, but they had to use an accordion. It's broken. They couldn't even play it.
And I was like, is there like some
I know.
symbolism here that I'm missing
Yeah.
with an accordion?
And
I
I was
don't know.
trying to like, I don't know, maybe it was like character development for like Piggy and Ralph's friendship or whatever. But I'm
Yeah.
like,
strange.
there were so.
If
They-
you introduce an accordion, I want a song and dance number.
Yeah.
I love accordions.
It was
There's
so
like a ton
random.
of people in the
So
Discord.
you're the one.
The Dillo Den Discord. There's a ton. There's like 2 or 3 people in the Dillo Den Discord that play accordions.
What is is that?
It's just like a chat room for everybody who wants to come in and talk about the book and stuff. So
Dillo. And no, Discord.
there's
Okay.
the plug.
Good plug.
So okay, so here's something that we may have all overlooked in the 1990s movie is that they do a poor job of establishing Jack as a villain with the election, but then they swing in the opposite direction and like put him out as a villain too obviously.
Yeah, it's like almost immediately after the election where he's a good guy, he is clearly the bad guy.
Then
Yeah,
suddenly he's
right.
because like whenever Piggy is talking about something later, and then suddenly he's so mean, and you're like, but he seemed like a cool guy in the meeting.
I do think though that the movie kind of a misstep of the movie is that he is really just acting more like a delinquent with his friends and not quite like they're devolving into savages again,
Right.
you know? It's just like they're throwing rocks and cracking each other up and stuff like that. And I think that's a problem with both movies, but this one especially.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
was
like
well. There's a time whenever he's like setting up. I think it's right after the election, and Jack is helping put up one of the shelters, and Ralph mentioned something to Jack about how they were going to be saved. Piggy says something about that as well, and Jack immediately explicitly states that he does not believe that they're going to be saved. And why would they want to be anyways? And so that just like is spoon feeding the audience like
yes.
the relationship between Jack and Ralph is
really
like,
is.
hey, Ralph is a good guy, he wants to get saved. Jack is a bad guy, he don't want to get saved.
And then Jack like yells at Piggy, and Ralph immediately defends Piggy. And I was like, well, this wasn't really the way it was in the book.
Yeah.
Ralph takes a lot of time to become like a friend of Piggy's.
Yeah, or even defend him
they were
in any
like
way.
friends
And
immediately.
Piggy was like calling him names, like and stuff
There was
like
a
that. It
great
was
insult
okay,
in
when
this
did they
movie.
start calling him? Because like he never had that
Oh,
scene where he's like, "Oh, they can call me anything as
What
long as they
happens
call,
is-
I think it's
don't
just
call me
Ralph
Piggy."
calls him
Jack
that.
is like building
Or Jack, I
something,
mean.
and Piggy's like saying something, and they're arguing, and he looks and he's like, "Shut up, fatty!" And someone just randomly says, "He's not fatty. They call him Piggy.
Piggy.
He's Piggy." And they were like, "Haha, Piggy, Piggy, Piggy!" Like, and kind of just like brought it out, and that's how it's introduced. When I thought it was so important that he was like, "Hey, please don't let them call me Piggy." Like that was
And-
super important because that was like that
Yeah.
friendship thing that was like,
Yeah.
and he betrayed him, and that was like a big deal for him.
Oh,
'Cause
as
it
soon
does-
as it's brought up too,
Yeah.
Ralph
That's-
is like, "Hey guys, his name's Piggy." Ha ha.
I think that's the way the book kind of sets up Ralph and Jack being on the same page early on and then separating. They don't start as like friends and then become different people really. They're more like both ambivalent towards Piggy,
Yeah.
and then Ralph kind of develops more of a heart for him over the course of the entire book.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Jack
And they're kind of friends
is
like
just
right off the bat.
almost immediately
Yeah.
like a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, and Piggy like doesn't have like the same job that he had in the book. Like he had a job of like taking names. They didn't really know each other.
Yeah, none of
And
that.
so he didn't have
But
the
there's no
same
little
purpose.
It's
Yeah,
like
there's no
less
little
of a
And
kids or
they
purpose
all
to
know each other
establish
anyway.
order whenever you don't have any little kids that you have to look after.
Yeah, well, like the book doesn't mention the Litlands very often either,
Yeah.
but they're always there.
They're
Honestly,
there,
yeah,
and I
that's a
think-
plot thread that they could drop and it wouldn't really affect much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I liked it because it was like they had a little bit of a responsibility towards them. Like, I mean, at least Piggy did, and it gave other people like, oh, well, what about the little kids like running around, and it showed how quickly like they like
Immediately. Yeah.
like devolved, I guess.
Yeah.
So another thing is after the election, whenever Ralph is elected chief, the fact of his chiefhood is never revisited again. Like there's
Yeah.
not
Like
not
he's the one in charge, really.
yeah, it's never like I don't think there's ever a power struggle between Jack and Ralph.
Not that I remember. I mean, there might have been like him saying, "I'm in charge."
Yeah,
at some
but
point,
it was
or emphasizing building the fire once. But yeah, you're right. Not nearly enough to.
Yeah.
Again, like, man, establish this stuff if you're gonna make a movie about it.
Yeah, like there was never a point, even whenever he goes to, like toward the end of the movie, whenever Piggy and Ralph, in the movie it's just Piggy and Ralph, Sam and Eric don't come. They go to Jack to Castle, Fort or whatever, Castle Rock. To try
Casterly Rock.
They go to Casterly
Rock.
and that's when he goes and he tries to go get his specs back.
No, because he didn't take his specs.
He took the survival knife.
He tries to go get the knife back. And
Weird.
then even then, whenever Roger's like questioning him and stuff and not letting him go by, he never like tries to state his chiefhood over Jack. Like they never. It never comes up again.
It's not a really big deal. I did like that they actually, like, towards the end, like, fought with the sticks.
Oh, yeah. I like that, too.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I wanted.
What was I going to say? I don't know. I just thought that somebody at one point insults Piggy, and it's really funny. I can't remember what the insult is, but I also liked when the other kid pointed out the one kid pooping his pants.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's sad in it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna name any names,
but
maybe Matt just didn't know any better.
Yeah. It's so
like,
funny because it felt
know,
so true to like how boys would give each other crap nowadays.
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed that quite a bit. That made me laugh.
That was like the one scene my brother walked in while I was watching it, and he just started laughing. He didn't even know what the movie was about. Really, he just thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's great out of context, in context. So we can agree that everything happens very quickly, and then one big thing that is the worst discrepancy in the movie in comparison to the book is Simon's entire plot line.
Yes.
His character and all of his action just absolutely ruined this movie for me in comparison to the book. And it's like, well, we can say they're making some different decisions, some different creative freedoms that they were taking with the story to Americanize it, modernize it, and stuff. Whatever. There was no excuse for what they did with Simon and what they didn't do with Simon.
It was so weird, and he talked too much almost. Like, Simon's supposed to be all quiet and a little reserved and stuff and introspective. And it's like, honestly, there could have been so many ways to, like, kind of display, like, the internal, like, problems that all these kids are having. But none of that happened. It's all just surface. Like, we're just watching this all happen. And it was really upsetting.
And Simon's, like... He only existed in this movie so that it's like shocking whenever he's murdered by the other kids.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really have any impact because the movie doesn't spend any time establishing him or making you care about him.
I don't care about Simon in the movie.
That's one of the first scenes with him is him wandering off to go find the cave and find out what's happening there. And it's like, aside from him having the lizard, I mean, I guess it makes you care about him a little bit that his lizard dies.
I like the way that Simon looked in the movie, though.
He
looked like a Simon.
But if I had just watched the movie and not read the book, and after Simon died, I would have been like, what was that kid's name again? I don't remember who that was.
I really wish it had the moment between him and Ralph.
He was like Bill in the book,
buddies.
where
and he
like
had
smiling at each other, and Simon telling him to take care.
And he says, he's like, I'm sure you'll get home.
That's what this movie needed.
Yeah.
Both movies.
And so the biggest deal with Simon for me was that they passed up the brilliant opportunity, and we mentioned this earlier a little bit, the brilliant opportunity to get freaky with Lord of the Flies.
Yes, like they could have actually, like, not the pig moving its mouth or anything, but just at least a creepy voice and made it dark and just sinister, like like in that moment, and it just wasn't. It was like he sat there for a couple seconds, stared at it, and then it's like moved on.
Yeah,
I would have even liked
way too short.
The pig to move its mouth and like actually like begin to speak and articulate its face and stuff like that, and like look at Simon, like put human eyes in it.
Plus, there are all sorts of like cool camera tricks and stuff. Like not even stuff that takes any sort of technology.
Yeah.
Stuff that they had already been like what's it called, the Jaws shot where he realizes the shark is attacking people, and it does like I think they're like moving the camera backwards while zooming in on him, and it just creates this weird like the environment
the
around
depth
him
of,
kind of flexes out.
The depth of field changes so that the background separates
like,
from the
stays
foreground.
Right there, the same distance from the camera, and I think something like that with the pig's head would just add a really great effect of like, man, this is getting weird.
And
and even
no
with Simon's
delirium.
face too. Yeah.
Like Simon is not delirious, like running through the forest,
Oh,
sweating,
he's completely
having
normal.
fits. His nose isn't bleeding, like nothing. He's just like, dead
he's
pig.
just cool.
Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
the
it's not a
reason
big
they
deal.
think he's like a beast is because he's crawling out of the forest
And he's
being a weirdo.
Yeah, he's cut up. His like he looks terrible, and he looks like awful, and he's like coming in there, and his voice is probably all raggedy, telling them like, "Oh, it's a dead person, and it's just a man." Well, he just comes out of the forest looking fresh. He looks like Simon carrying this glow stick.
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
and he's running down the beach towards them. The way I picture it in the
him
at least
coming
in
out of the
book,
forest.
is that he comes out of the forest right next to where they're all
Yes,
on the beach,
yes.
and they just see this thing come out of the forest. Yeah.
Yeah,
that
it
made
was
a lot
so
more
random
sense.
because I think that him just running that amount of distance would have given the kids time to process and be like, "Oh, that's Simon." Does that make sense? Like,
yes,
Yeah.
I
they
mean,
had
like,
time.
they had time to sit there and be like, "Oh,
I
hey,
don't know
Simon."
if that's a beast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Especially
it was
with
terrible.
them charging him, because they're like running straight towards him for a good few seconds, so they can enough time for them to like. I don't know.
It was hands down the most disappointing portion of the film.
Yeah,
Just because
it
you
just
read
wasn't
that.
epic.
Yeah, you read it in the book, and like you read the book today, and you say, "Wow, that scene could look awesome in film."
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to turn this into a movie just for that scene between Simon and the pig, because
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
such a
Ooh.
trippy
Have y'all
moment.
seen The Witch?
The
Yeah.
Witch,
Like,
yes.
you know what? The end of The Witch, where
When
like,
she's talking to
like
Black
to the
Phillip.
to the goat, and it's like the creepy voice, and you just get like chills and like
Yeah,
pain in your stomach,
right.
and you're like, "Oh my god!"
That's a very
She's talking to Satan,
right.
and
Deliciously.
yes,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
that. And that's what that scene like should have invoked in the audience, and it's just gone from
I
the
agree
movie.
1,000%.
That ruined the movie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think strong points in this movie. I think Ralph is Balthazar Getty, I think is the kid's name. What a
That's
name.
so weird. Yes.
He's still kind of acting nowadays. But he was definitely more popular in the 90s. He kind of looked like a young Charlie Sheen. Anyway, he's really good, and despite the fact that he's in a sling, he still kind of exerts like the Ralph personality.
Yeah. He's too nice.
I thought Piggy was all right, especially like after his glasses get broken and he starts becoming more sympathetic. He's just never like the voice of reason that he is in the book.
Yeah.
He's more of just like Ralph's friend, and that's why we're supposed to be sad. You don't get the sense that like civility is dying with this kid, and I felt like his death was kind of lame too.
He
Yeah, I
didn't.
wrote
He
down
wasn't really
Piggy's
saying
death.
the things that he was the same. Like, do you want to choose this or this? And then the rock's the answer,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
And
that
he's,
it
like,
just wasn't that
him
heavy.
cowering behind Ralph and stuff and yelling like, "Remember why we came here? Remember why we came here?" None of that is in the movie.
Yes.
And that's like,
Remember my specs. Remember the fire, and like that. None of that happens.
Yeah.
and the
Or
book creates such a picture of like the conch in his hands like exploding when he's hit by the rock, and him flying and falling like 40 feet and smashing onto a
Piggy's
rock.
death scene.
Man, it was hilarious.
I liked
was-
the gore of Piggy's death scene because it was quick. Like, I mean, hit, dead. Like, I mean, that's how fast
And
it
his
was.
brains are out. Like,
Yeah.
Whoever did the gore effects for this movie,
Good job.
job.
Yeah.
job,
And
sir.
I liked that. However, like the whole thing about Piggy's body washing away, that's a big deal to
Yeah.
me within the book because it's like the island like taking away.
Yeah, it's like
Like-
just like the conch,
like erasing
just
that.
disintegrates into nothing, and or the sea just washes him away,
Yeah.
and he's just gone.
Yeah, I do feel like there was another lost opportunity. There could have been more done for Piggy's death. Like the gore was nice, but I
Yeah.
feel like the rock wasn't the proper size.
No.
It wasn't
was-
a boulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It It was a big
and maybe
rock.
like you work with what you have to work with. I don't know like what their budget limitations were or anything.
I thought it was funny that the 1990 version went with like a pretty small rock, but still like not too small. And then the 1963 version went with like half of the mountain because it was a big old rock.
Yeah.
They both went for very different
and
sizes.
Ralph, I don't remember this happening in the book, but like Ralph like sees the rock coming in and is like, no, but like
Piggy!
It was very cheesy.
yes, but like it shouldn't have happened like that because I mean, if you see a rock coming, like you're not gonna have time to process like, oh, that's about to hit my friend, he's about to die. I think that's something that would have happened very quick, and then you're sitting there like, oh my god, my friend just died, and that was a very big like, it happened so fast and quick, and like that's the whole point of it. Like,
makes me think of like the Departed, whenever Leo's like running out of the building and Martin Sheen's been thrown off the roof. Spoiler alert, sorry. He's like running around the corner, Leonardo DiCaprio is, and then Martin Sheen just smashes on the ground right in front of him, and he's just like doesn't even have time to process it because a car pulls up and they're like, get in, and he gets in and he's just like covered in blood.
And that's a good like example, because that when I first watched that scene, I didn't have time to process it. Like the viewers was like, oh my gosh,
right? It's
and just like, whoa. They depict it like it's the guy that fell off of a 3-story building and hit the concrete. It's like, that's disgusting. Terrible.
And
they didn't do that.
Fun connection there. The kid who plays Simon is in The Departed.
Really?
Yeah, he's the one that shows up at the end and is talking to Matt Damon and is like, I was undercover too, like as part of the mob. Yeah, and then Matt Damon shoots him and is just like the only one left. He's just like washing any traces clean. So
that movie disturbed me so much.
Well,
we must not talk about it.
Unlike this movie, which should have also disturbed me.
Yeah,
so
it should have.
I should have
felt unsettled about it. I really wanted.
Yeah, if your story is about people like returning to savage nature, then that should really have an impact on you emotionally watching it. Yeah. Especially when it's children. That's the whole point. Like the most innocent type of people become the worst kind of people. And this movie just doesn't have like the gut punch of that. Especially like the third act is the weakest, which is a huge problem because the tension doesn't build like it should towards the end. Like everything's on fire and he's running and Roger's kind of coming after him for a minute. But before before it's all, I don't know, if you even have time to process it, suddenly he's on the beach and there's the soldier, the guy in the camo, standing there.
The slow-mo scene for leading up to that was nice though, like when everything's on fire and he's like running through it.
And it's nice to see a movie where they're actually lighting stuff on fire. Nowadays I think that would all be CGI. And it's cool to see like, oh man, they really like burned a lot of stuff down.
Some controlled pyro and everything.
And they were running. And I did like the ending scene versus the 63 version. So, like, he sees the Marine, and he's standing there, and he just starts crying. Yes. And that was really important. And then Jack's, like, literally, he just stands there, and he's like, he's, like, opening his mouth. He can't say anything.
He's a fish now.
I did think one great moment of kind of acting for a second was when, after Piggy dies, Jack is like looking and he has a look in his eyes like he realizes something terrible just happened, but as soon as Ralph starts yelling at him and saying like, this is like, look what you did, then Jack is like, I did do this, and you know, he immediately like reverts back. But there is a moment of him like kind of, it's hitting him that he just killed Piggy. So I like that. And
see, I like that. I liked that in the movie, but I mean, I don't think it was like what he did in the book. Because, I mean, as soon as Piggy died in the book, he threw his spear at Ralph and was like, see, that's going to be you next. I guess then they all started
because in the book, it feels like a natural progression. Like Jack has already reached this point where he is capable of doing this thing without regrets. In the movie, it was like, I don't really see these kids being at the point where they're going to murder another child. So it does make sense that there's a moment of like hesitation afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that's
that
a
made
fault
sense
of the
for
movie
his
overall,
character,
Yeah.
in the movie.
that they're still just kind of delinquent kids.
I
They're not quite.
I like the
savages.
reaction of the Marine at the end because he's like, oh my god. But like in the book, he's like, you guys, like he just boys played in the
See,
woods.
I feel the opposite
Yeah.
of that, where that's all he says is like, what are you kids doing or something.
Yeah.
In the movie, he just can't believe what he's seeing. But I like it better in the book where he's just like, you kids playing games or
Jolly
playing
good
war?
show.
He's like,
Yeah, he just doesn't understand the weight of everything.
Yeah.
And maybe
And
it works better in a
the
movie
Marines
to
are
have
like-
someone who feels the heavy feeling of what the reader is feeling. Maybe that's better for a movie.
if we think about like in the 90s, like I mean there's more like communication and TV, they probably knew that these kids were missing and everyone's like freaking out. They're like, oh my god, they died in this boat crash, and everyone's like,
yeah.
like it's probably on like national news everywhere, and everyone's like the lost lives of whatever, and he's like, oh, we found them like right now. So I think that could have been a big thing that's like, we've been looking for you guys everywhere.
And then when it ends, it just goes back to that stupid music that's just like.
Oh my god.
It's just like
Yeah.
it doesn't really go with the mood that the heavy feeling that you should be left with at the end of the movie. It's it's too light. It's, I don't know, it's just not a good choice.
I'm a really big fan of movies that have very good pacing. They have a nice swell and build, and then their climax just destroys you with drama. And then at the end, like, my favorite thing for a movie to end is silent credits. Like, if your movie deserves silent
like the heavy
credits,
episodes of Game of Thrones, and it
Yeah.
would just go to like after a main character dies and there's just no music for like the first time over the credits.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, what just happened?
what am I left with?
I
Yeah.
think the ending
Yeah.
of that,
It really is super impactful.
It's
that
very
one
moving.
episode of Game of Thrones with the Sept of Baelor, that
Yeah,
one
the Sept of
ended
Baelor.
so well, and like there was the great build with the music and everything.
Yeah, that
And
12-minute song.
Yeah, and then it ended, I think, with Tom and
Yeah. And then, and so the ending deserved a silent
Okay.
credit.
yeah.
Yeah, the ending
Yeah.
deserves a silent credit, and this could
Meta
have
pianos
this
have been
could
that.
have been an opportunity to really just tear people down and have this like moment of like crying with all the children, and like the soldier is not sure what he's even looking at right now because these kids.
Yeah.
So
If that
Instead-
soldier hadn't showed up, like, I mean, I really realized, like, Jack was, like, for sure gonna die. Like, I mean, not Jack, but Ralph was, like, for
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
gonna die.
Yeah.
But, like, all that build up, I did like the scene where they're all running, and they're, like going crazy, and then they just see the helicopter come down, and the soldier standing there just, like, hands
I
on
thought
his
that
hips.
helicopter was going to land on that dude for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
First
Cut
of
it
all,
close.
some of
Slow
those
down.
soldiers just started out on the island. There was only one helicopter, and the helicopter landed, and then there were already 4 people on the island.
Did they, like,
How
jump
did they get
down
there?
on the
Yeah.
helicopter?
Right?
They should have had
Wasn't
one of
there
them
a
playing
boat?
an accordion.
Yeah.
And then have one of the
No,
kids.
he sees the accordion on the island, and he's like, "Hey, you found that? That's actually why I came
This is
here.
what
I
we're
came
here
to
for.
find that."
Thank you. I wish it had ended with the one kid pooping his pants and sitting in it again.
That would have been
That
a
would have been
deserved
good.
ending.
Oh.
Ew.
Ooh, that was wet.
So, yeah.
So that's the 1990 version.
That's the
We'll leave you with that
Oh,
fart noise.
yeah, it was not good. I
On
mean,
that-
I liked the way that the characters looked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the characters. And
Jack and
I
Ralph
did
weren't
like the island.
They didn't look as
Too good.
dirty to me.
Yeah.
I think
That's-
they should
Oh,
have looked
That
so
was another
dirty.
thing. Like, there's no hair growth or anything, so you get the sense that they just kind of devolve like this over the course of a few days.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this is a movie where you really need to invest in some wigs or something, or at least like film
Yeah.
over a longer period of time so that is better established.
Yeah,
Like, it
wasn't
needs to
done
take
well.
a little more time.
And that's like the overall thing with the films anyways, and mostly with the 90s movie, is that they just sped everything up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, to the point where stuff stops making sense.
Oh, it felt
Like-
very rushed, and I just felt like I was being dragged by horses through this movie. Like, it felt insane.
Yeah, I think that's one of the points too, that I just felt like there were no moments to breathe. There was no moments to like take in anything, whether it was, because the moments that you breathe in the movie are supposed to be character building. They're supposed to be reprieve for the characters themselves, and they didn't have time.
Like the accordion scene.
Yeah, you got into a half-ass accordion scene.
It's weird.
There
And-
wasn't
like
a lot
that.
of characterization, for sure.
It's interesting though, because I felt like the 1963 movie
Yeah.
63.
had the opposite problem, where it felt like it crawled at certain points.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
It was like, okay, let's.
Yeah.
Like, between these two movies, there is a great adaptation of this book.
Yeah, if they were put together.
Yes. Like, take...
Because, like, where one is strong, the other one's pretty weak.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think the 63 version is the stronger version of this story.
It is, just for the plain fact that the 63 movie was more true to the book.
Yeah, it's more faithful.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Like, that was my first note. Already this version is more faithful to the book. It does kind of introduce more ideas of like evacuation and like go into stuff that's just kind of suggested in the book but not outright said.
Yeah.
And then it suggests that their plane gets struck by lightning, and that's how they crash, because it's like showing photos at the beginning, and then you see like the lightning hitting the plane. And anyway,
It
that
was
weird.
nice to see
It's
the
a 4-minute
different,
intro
like,
in the beginning
yeah.
of that movie. And you're
oh
like,
yeah, old school
come
intros,
on.
which we're not used to, but back in the day, like when film first like became a thing, long intros were a thing. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Like a notoriously long intro is like how the West was won. Was an old spaghetti western. It's legitimately like almost 15 minutes long.
Yes.
Before any dialogue is said.
Even the 1990 version is kind of long at the start because it's just the credits. At least this one's like showing you stuff.
Yeah.
I hate when movies have long openings and it's just credits. It's
Yeah.
like, I like getting rid of the credits like at the beginning of the movie so you can just end with a title and minimal credits and that's
Right.
it. But give me something to watch or
Yeah,
something
that's-
that's going to entertain
Some
me.
images, you know, of
Yes.
anything.
This is, you're making a motion picture, like
Yeah.
images. Show me this story. Don't just tell me it.
It
Right.
was super true to the book, and that's what I appreciate, because I can be a purist sometimes, where I'm like I really enjoy when books like match the movie,
Oh yeah, it
because like
picks up,
that's
like the
author's
opening
intent.
past the credits is Ralph running through the jungle. He's like he's
Yeah.
already there on the island, just like the book, and then he runs into Piggy.
I like that a lot.
It's like, okay, this is pretty, and he's
I
kind
felt
of
like-
ignoring him. And it's like, okay, yep,
It's like
I felt like the script was a lot of times like word for word from the
Yes.
book.
yes,
like
that's
pulled
true
straight
with
out of
a
it.
lot of old black and white movies.
Yeah,
that
that's
are
what I
taken
was
from novels.
Saying to Riley earlier,
They
like
will pull like straight entire lines. I don't know why so many writers nowadays, I'm sure it's like a studio mandated thing, but like they have to change up all the dialogue and stuff, and it's like,
Oh
this
my
was
God,
written so
yeah.
much better in the book. Why couldn't you just like given us what they say in the book?
yeah, in older movies it definitely felt like they were really pulling from the book, like reading the book while they're writing the script and like
Ooh.
writing down all the dialogue and putting it here.
A lot of the audio was like dubbed over. So like they
Yes,
it
I've
was
got a
super
note
weird,
about
and it
the
was
audio
really
for this movie
echoey.
is horrendous.
It's super echoey and weird. It sounds like it was like put in a completely different place.
Yeah, they were in a room, like a terrible room with awful acoustics.
Apparently they
Yeah.
couldn't, like the wind and the ocean and everything, it was too noisy for them to record with what they had.
And
so they had
sometimes,
all
like,
the kids do their lines.
They'd be
later
talking
on.
and their mouths wouldn't be moving.
Yeah, that happens a few
Yes.
times. Jack, especially, like there are a few scenes where he's talking to the whole group,
Or-
and it's like, ooh, this looks bad.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it has that weird, like, echoey, like distorted sound sometimes when there is a noise that they add in that's not actually happening in the scene.
Yeah, really poor Foley.
Yes.
I think is the word for
In a
those
weird way,
sounds.
though, it kind of adds to the like discomfort of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like it's an uncomfortable audio experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that helps add to the feeling of the book in a way. But I mean, I definitely would have preferred just good recordings.
Yeah. Well, and that's always the rule too, is that whenever you're doing anything with motion picture, that the sound should be better than the visuals.
Yes.
Because people will always forgive like bad visuals if it sounds good to their ears. But it won't happen with the reverse. You could have like a beautiful image and then the sound sounds like you recorded it with a potato.
Yeah.
And it's off-putting. It's so much more uncomfortable to listen to things that sound terrible.
I loved this Piggy.
Oh
He
God,
wasn't that fat though. I mean, he was
really-
just, his face was
My
a little
first
fat.
note was Piggy is precious.
He's
'cause
so
was so
cute.
cute. His like
Yeah.
first few lines, I was like, I already love him.
Yeah.
I preferred the 90s Piggy.
Really?
I did too.
Yeah.
This
I thought
kid-
he was adorable.
I liked this kid to a certain degree,
He was astute. I like
but
it.
his
cute.
his line reading every time was everything he said was said like he was reading it off a cue card.
Oh, really?
Just off camera.
Yeah.
That's
was
kind
like
of how
that.
I loved his accent and the way he said things. And he was
I
like,
thought the actor was cute.
There is one
and so
scene
I
that we'll get
liked
to
him.
in a minute that I think is the best scene of this movie, purely because of like his accent and the way he delivers the lines.
do you
such
remember
the
when they
last one.
talked about like when they had to explore the island the first time and they pushed off the rock?
Yeah.
They like legit pushed off a rock into like the mountain. And I was like, yeah,
I
that's
know,
a that's
I
a
like
great
that too.
depiction. It like rolled in and made all this noise, and I was like, yeah.
I was super happy though early on when we got a sucks to your asthma.
Yes.
I was like, they're swimming in the
Yes.
ocean together.
Mhm.
He's like, I
Yes.
can't because of my asthma. Sucks to your asthma.
Yeah.
It's like that's all I needed out of a live action adaptation of this.
It was
Yeah.
great. That's
It
like
was-
that's one of like the
was
most
super
iconic
funny, 'cause he's
lines.
Jack's like getting undressed, like get in the water, and he gets undressed really fat. Ralph, I mix him up.
I know, I do too. It's really tough to keep.
So Ralph's getting all undressed. He gets undressed really fast, and Piggy's like peeling off his socks, and it takes forever for him to take his clothes off, and like there's sand everywhere, and it's super weird because it's black and white. The sand makes it look like there's holes in their pants, like their cheeks are just like out. And there's nudity in this movie,
Yeah, there is
which
a little bit.
I think is more accurate. Like, because
Yeah,
like I
sure.
mean, for sure there's gonna be a bunch of like naked little kids around. If you've ever been to church camp, like,
So one thing about the 63 movie, now that you mention that, is that they were not like they were like in perfect shape at the start of the movie.
Mhm.
Like all their clothes were like pristine. I don't
Yeah.
know how that happened. Like they weren't wet. They didn't come from the ocean.
Yeah.
They
I mean, the
Worth-
book kind of suggests that they fell out of the plane, maybe, like
Yeah.
as it was.
Well, there was a
about
gash.
to crash.
They all
know.
just jumped out, plopped on the island.
I did kind of think they fell into the island, like as it was just about to touch down and like crash into the ocean on the other side or
So
something.
how did they all end up in different places?
Like they fell out or were forced to jump out as the plane is like coming over the island and like tearing through some of the trees or something.
Oh yeah.
That's how they all ended up separate and scattered.
I loved the scene where they're just on the beach and then we hear singing like coming down the beach.
And
Like
it's
they're
the
just
choir.
singing
Oh.
their choir songs and
I did
they're
like
wearing
that.
their black cloaks and they're like a unit, just like
I like that
marching down the
Piggy was
beach.
actually trying to learn some names in this. He's going
Yes.
around like asking everyone. But man, Sam and Eric are tiny. I was like, these
They were
kids are
lit
Super
way
young.
Buns.
They're like 11, 12,
Man.
like about
in the book.
and
Yeah.
they're super young.
They're little ones in this one.
Mhm.
They're little
I didn't
ones.
write many notes for this movie, but one thing I did write was who the hell is Harold? Because
Harold.
we even
they
hear
had a
about
really
him?
long roll call.
They had a
at
ton
the
of
beginning.
and I was like, who are these people? Who is Harold? Where does he come from?
There's an
I don't remember
awkward
him.
scene too where it's like panning over the choir boys to introduce themselves.
Right, the
and
roll
the first
call.
kid is like looking at the camera. He's like,
You
yes.
can tell some of them forgot their
He just
line
starts-
or forgot their
Oh,
name because like
Henry
first
looking
off,
right at the camera.
they'd be like, they would say like Robert, and then the next
Yeah.
kid would be like,
The guy who plays Robert, he's still in movies too. He was just
Bill.
in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Really?
oh,
Yeah,
he
Nicholas
was. Who
Hammond.
was he?
He's there's a scene where he's talking with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like a director or something, and he's just trying to psych him up while he's like getting makeup put on.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And he's just kind of standing too close to him and too like excited talking to him. But I think it's cool. He's still doing stuff. He was in The Sound of Music back in the day as one of the kids.
Who is this?
Nicholas Hammond is his name.
Which character is that?
In Sound of Music?
No, which character?
He just plays Robert. He's in it for like a second, you know, like
Percival, what's his name? Wembley something, and he
Blah,
shows
blah,
up,
blah,
and
yeah.
that kid was
they
adorable.
stuck to the book like over and over
He's
again.
like telephone.
The progression of the book matched the progression of the movie. Like they did things in order.
The way it was filmed for the 1990 version is a lot better and more fluid. This one was pretty rough sometimes.
It was pretty slow. I wanted to fall asleep.
And it was like just kids messing around and everything. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's got to be some sort of structure to your story. I think they didn't even have like a script or anything. They just told the kids what lines to say, and then they would say them. So in that regard, Piggy does a great job where he's got tons of lines to say, and he sounds very stilted and weird, but he's
it was super weird because they're all
he did say them.
I liked all like them sitting in their little like groups and just all the giggling and the like laughing and messing around that was happening, because I'm like, yeah, that like actually happened.
Yeah.
So that really was good.
Did y'all read online how the kid who plays Piggy was cast?
No.
Is that like, I guess they put out a casting call for kids that they needed in this movie, and the little actor, he wrote a letter to the director saying, "I am fat and I wear glasses." And so he got an audition for that, and he got the part.
He wasn't even that fat.
He wasn't that fat.
That's what I was thinking a lot of times. Like, this Piggy's not Piggy
Man,
enough.
that makes him so much more adorable.
But his little face.
I am fat and I wear glasses.
He was so cute. And some
it.
people were commenting on the YouTube video, and they're like, "Hey, this Jack guy," they were like, "I want to see how he grew up," and they're like, "He's like 70 now."
Oh my god.
Was it Future Babes?
Oh, Future, yeah.
Yeah, he was looking fine.
Man, I thought Jack was hilarious, not because the movie intended him to be hilarious,
His voice
but
is
with
so
his
high-pitched.
accent and the angles that they were. Because the first line he says, it's like a downward angle, and he's like, "So who's going to be chief?" And like from below, and like so loud, and I was like, and it was so funny.
Before Roger even introduces himself, I was like, that is Roger. That's got to be him. 'Cause
Really?
He's got like those dead eyes. Something about his eyes. I was like, oof.
Yeah.
Simon faints at the start, though. That
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
happen
what
in the
he
book.
did in the movie.
Oh,
I mean, in
yeah.
the book.
He does faint?
Yeah, he fainted.
Yeah, and they
they're
were, like,
he
fanning
always
him.
has fainting spells.
Okay.
That's what he did. I forgot about that.
Yeah. The only time I remember him fainting was when he was talking with the Lord of the
fainted at the
Flies.
very beginning of the book.
Huh. Okay. Well,
And so they actually pulled that.
I did not remember that happening. Was he part of the choir boys originally too?
Yeah.
Okay, that was another thing I was unsure of. I was like, I don't know if he was with this group or not.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't look at all like he's described in the book, but he is like quiet-natured and somewhat mysterious, like he should be.
Yeah.
And that kid's also, his acting was pretty horrendous. Anytime he had to say anything, it was just like,
They all.
okay,
Yeah.
you're just reading a cue card.
Yeah.
But what are you cutting out? What is this?
Oh, I forgot to give you my recommendations.
I can put it in.
Okay.
So anybody who is listening right now, you can type into the chat a suggestion for what book we should read next. We're not done with our conversation, but I just need to cut these up and put them into a
Yes.
hat.
I was like, man, you're just working on like a craft project.
Yeah.
That makes so much more sense.
So
He's
we're
like,
gonna,
sorry,
we're-
I have an art class later.
Yeah, I'm writing them out onto paper, and we will put them into this top hat, and we will draw them out at random, and we'll see what book we're going to read next. Now, the criteria for suggestions, and we'll say this again at the end, just so everybody knows.
I did want to change one of mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I need to even put
I
my
was
name.
gonna do I Am Legend instead of.
That's a book?
Yeah.
It is?
No way.
Can we do do that, please?
Yeah,
Because
I
I
could-
just want to watch the movie.
It's a famous book.
Drop it in the chat.
There are
No need to
3
do
movies of
Discord.
that book.
Later
Oh, but
on,
the
if
one
you
with Will Smith.
suggestions,
Oh, yeah.
you can
Oh
put
my
into
God, that one
the
makes me
Discord
cry.
when we're not live. But if we are live, just throw them in the chat.
Also,
Yes.
it changed things where I've read that book before, and I don't think y'all have.
No.
No, I
So
haven't.
that
That would be
so it'll
great.
be a
We'll add that one.
I think
A
you'd be
flip.
very surprised
So-
how
Yes.
different the book is.
And we'll just keep adding the suggestions to the hat, and they'll just stay in there, and then we'll just keep drawing them out. So the criteria for the book suggestions: the book has to be under 300 pages around, but that's a soft rule.
Just like short.
Yeah, a shorter book, and then it has to be a classical book or considered a classic book. Again, another soft rule. And then it also has to have one film adaptation.
But that's also
That's
a soft
also
rule.
a soft rule. So,
yes.
so it should have 2 out of the 3. I feel like 2 out of the 3.
Our rules are very comfortable.
Yeah, they're very we don't like to be constrained. All right. So
The Golden
the
Compass.
Golden Compass.
What is that?
Ooh.
I've
Yes,
never
that's a
heard of
good
that.
book. My mom wouldn't let me watch the movie because it's like super
Isn't that a
controversial.
book series though?
What is it?
Wouldn't we have to?
Oh yeah, it is.
Is it a book
series.
I've never
It's
heard
basically
of
like
it.
the Chronicles of Narnia, but for
Oh.
atheists.
Yeah, it's.
It really is. That's
Can
yeah,
we
my
read
mom.
the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, my mom like won't let me. Like wouldn't let me watch it growing up. I
The
read it in
Golden Compass.
secret.
How big is the series?
I don't know. I know that there is like a series on HBO for it now that just
Really?
debuted.
I've heard the name, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we need that.
Can we do the gold? No, it's too long.
It's too long.
We
Yeah,
should
it
do
has
the
to
Great
be like
long.
Gatsby.
it has to be like under
The Great
300
Gatsby
pages.
is short, right?
I don't want to read The Great Gatsby again. It's
Man,
so
I
worn
like
out.
The Great Gatsby, and I want to watch the movie.
I love
Yeah.
it
I've
again.
never read the book
Same.
or seen.
The suggestion
You
is in
haven't-
there.
It's-
that book is in the drawing.
It's-
so.
it's
The
nice.
Catcher
three-
in the Rye.
No, I didn't put Catcher in the Rye.
Well, guess what? I'm putting it in because I love that book.
Oh, man.
It's pretty good.
Do you not like that book?
I hate Catcher in the Rye.
I loved that book.
The
My
Golden
sister
Compass
loved it
is
so
3
much she
books.
bought an autobiography of J.D. Salinger. He's creepy, but the
So
book is really
she
good.
they
The
say
Wizard of
that
Oz.
the
Huh?
although the Golden Compass is a trilogy,
You read it?
it's technically just the
I
first
hate that
book.
movie.
Yeah, I think the Golden Compass is
Yeah.
the name of the first book in the
Maverick,
trilogy.
put in The Wizard of Oz.
It's already in there.
Put in The Catcher in the Rye.
The
I'll
Wizard of
put it
Oz
in.
is super
Is
good.
1984 in there?
Yes.
Okay.
1980. No, 1984 is not in there.
Put that one in
Fahrenheit
there.
is in there. Fahrenheit's in there
Yeah.
twice. We had 2
Nice.
votes for that.
All
Put in,
right,
put
Fahrenheit's
in,
really good.
Fight Club.
Is that a book?
Yeah.
Really?
Palahniuk?
Put in Star Wars.
That's pretty dope.
But also,
Just
I don't
read
wanna,
the screenplay.
I don't want to
Yeah.
do that.
It's too long.
No, that's like for bros.
Oh yeah.
Just like there are certain type of guys that are obsessed with Fight Club and
Okay, so the vote's gonna be Fight Club. We'll
son
do.
of a,
They want it. They want it.
only if you can spell Palahniuk without looking it up.
All the songs in this movie, like when they're singing in the choir, that was like the one point in which the audio was like nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the
And-
63 movie.
I did think it was more fitting too. Like it kind of contrasts the subject matter of the movie pretty well
Mhm.
with like innocent kids singing like "Bless Us, O Lord" in Latin or something like
Yeah.
that, where it's the movie ends and rather than just like going out quietly or anything like that, it's just suddenly happy kids singing and it's like ooh, that doesn't fit the tone at all, but in a good way.
Right, it was like it contrasts it so much where it's almost disturbing because it's like
Ooh,
Yeah.
is The Count of Monte Cristo, is that short enough? That's pretty
I don't
long.
know.
That's a really good,
That's a good one.
book
My
and
brother,
movie.
my brother started reading that book. He said that it's very. There are some parts of the book where it's just like we'll go off on kind of a tangent or like follow.
Just read
characters.
War and Peace.
I'm looking at
Super dry.
classic books.
the
Like-
best part
Yeah,
about
me
this
too.
Put
drawing.
The Catcher in the Rye.
Lolita.
Okay.
Don't do Lolita. It's not appropriate for us to talk about at all.
1984
At
is
all.
on there already.
Catcher. The best part is going to be whenever we draw these and then me showing the camera what the piece of paper says and it's like terribly misspelled.
Should we draw like
That's what I want.
3 of them or something and then decide as a group which one we actually do want to cover? That way we're not stuck with one that all of us are kind of unenthusiastic about or something.
We could.
Yeah.
Or we could do like 2. Just vote between
Just to have like, I don't know, just another element of...
What do you think, Speeden? Should we draw 3 and then decide among all of us what we should do? We'll even make your vote count, Speeden.
What about Frankenstein?
Man, I
thought about that. I wanted to wait until Halloween to do those.
That's a good idea.
I think we should like try.
Because I was gonna say Dracula. Because
Yeah.
the old Dracula.
Don
is good.
Quixote.
I've read both of those.
Dracula's really long though.
Who's
Yeah.
Look at that.
Who's
How
Don
big
Quixote?
Dracula's on that shelf right there. Look how big it is.
Nice.
That's small print. That's like 11 point.
Man, the
one
one
of
that I read, it didn't seem that long.
It was
like a
probably
little book.
abridged.
Probably.
I
Could
don't
read
like
abridged the abridged version.
Yeah, Dracula as a whole, like, every chapter is a journal entry for somebody. Or
For
a newspaper
Dracula, yeah.
clipping.
It starts pretty slow, but
And there are parts where it's going over like recipes or they're following train schedules and
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like, oh
whenever
my
he like
God, let's get
gets
it.
to the house and stuff, then it gets a little faster.
Yeah.
But still slow.
I was saying, like, I think when Jonathan Harker is with Dracula in the castle, it's
Yeah.
all like really interesting stuff.
I like those scenes.
Once they're actually trying to track Dracula down and kill him, but he's like escaping, like
Yeah.
running from them, then it gets into like train schedules and stuff, and it's like,
Oh my god,
man, this
yeah.
is when the book should be amping up. Anyway, it gets better then again after
You
that.
know, The
book
Hobbit
did you
is
wanna
really
add?
short.
Yeah.
I Am Legend
Oh
by
yes.
Richard
Oh
Matheson.
man. I just want to read that to watch the movie again because that
It's a
movie's
short read,
so
too.
good.
And it's very entertaining.
That dog
Okay.
scene always makes me cry, without fail.
I have a photo saved in my phone for whenever I house and pet sit for my parents and they ask me how the dogs are. I'll send this picture of Will Smith.
No, that's so sad.
Oh,
Oh
really?
man,
There we
dude,
go.
that's just
Oh,
so
his
sad.
acting in that scene is so good. It
It's
just
so
makes
sad.
me so
The
sad.
dog is in the book too, but it's different.
Very lit.
Is In Cold Blood on there?
It is.
That's
now.
a good book.
That's a good book.
Did you put
I'm not reading anything by Ayn Rand.
Hunger Games on there? Just read a book that's really
We should
similar
put
to what we just finished.
Les
Yes.
Miserables on there. It's
In
like
content.
800 pages.
Yikes.
There's
Ooh.
an entire
the Bible.
chapter. Oh my god.
We could do a Bible book. I don't
You
do
should
that.
do it in Cold Blood. Hey, that person said in Cold Blood too, so
Okay.
Yeah.
gotta put it
In
on
Cold
there.
Blood
Okay,
is good.
that's 2 votes for In Cold Blood,
Are you putting things on there twice that
Yeah.
have 2 votes?
according
So
to
did
what
you
people
put
say. But if we
1984
draw,
twice?
but it's when we, 1984 we got
Who was
that.
calling
Where were
me?
we at in this movie?
I'm not reading Moby Dick. I refuse.
It's too long.
It's so
Oh my god,
dry.
it's so long.
That's on the shelf too. It's, way
so
too long.
Yeah, that's when I started, and I've never finished it. Sorry, Ishmael. I think this movie, though, this adaptation...
Oh, I hate
Oh,
Hemingway.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Can we watch that or read that while on acid? Because that's how he wrote it, right? He was on acid or something.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was on some sort of psychedelic.
yeah. It's basically about like being in like a psychiatric ward.
Nah, Speeden, we read books here regardless if someone hates it or not. So just because Brooke hates Hemingway doesn't mean we won't read it. And just because I hate Catcher in the Rye doesn't mean we won't read it.
Yeah, I still put it
You
on
don't
there.
like Catcher in the Rye, really?
No, I hate that book.
Dude,
It's a
I
good
But
love
see-
that
coming
book.
of age
See,
story.
Brooke wasn't as vehemently opposed to it, but Riley, when we started reading, when I told her that we were reading Lord of the Flies, she was like, "Oh, I hate that book. I can't wait for the book club." So it was.
Man,
was
I'll
really
read
funny.
stuff even if I hate it, and I'll just be miserable the whole time. But I'll
Yeah,
read it.
well, we, like a lot. Sometimes with the situation is that when we were talking about this in the chat, weren't we, Speeden? That some people read the books in high school because they're forced to,
Yeah.
and they hate it because of that, and it's stressful because you got to be tested over it and all kinds of stuff. and then we come back in this kind of environment and we try and read it for enjoyment.
Yeah, it's nice to read it in a group where you're kind of looking for things to appreciate about the book.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And you end up
trying to
finding
get a good grade.
Yeah.
I didn't read any of the books in high school anyway, though. So they would give them to me, and I would put them to the side and not read them.
Accelerated reader. We had to do AR through high school. Our high school was like one of the only ones that still did it.
Dude, I would just be dropping it.
I'd
be like, joke's on you. I've read all the Twilight books. Like, I would just like cash out.
Oh,
I would take all the tests,
read Harry Potter,
but not read the books.
Having to read for points. Shout out to Dylan Luttrell for giving me all the answers. R.I.P.
Dude, but you could you didn't have to prove that you read the book or anything. You could just take the test, and if you passed, you got the points. So I would go through and sort by the most points, and I would just take all the tests, and odds are I would pass some of them without reading them. So I had a lot of AR points that I did not deserve.
Nice.
Yes.
The Secret Garden is really good, and it has a good movie. I used to watch
There's a new adaptation coming out, too.
Really?
Like this year.
I love that one. And
The Secret Garden.
There is a Tale of Two Cities, but there are some books that are so old that they're like hard to read now. Like there's like I just have a really hard time breaking them down.
Do those books specifically because we are streaming this and there'll be a recording of it. People can watch our conversation about the book and then maybe have a better understanding of it. So we'll do the footwork on like.
Ooh, someone said Secret Garden.
Garden.
After you said it.
What's that one book that guy he like
speed and throw one more
a beetle or a cockroach.
Oh no.
One more suggestion.
I hate that.
That book is so
one more book suggestion and then we're shutting the faucet.
Atonement.
Is Atonement a short enough book?
I don't know.
How long is Atonement? Machine.
Is it
I've seen the movie.
Y'all like H.G. Wells?
I love The Time Machine.
The Time Machine is
That's
so
in there.
good.
Sweet.
Time Machine's in there.
Also, Invisible Man. He wrote that too. We could totally read that one.
Ooh.
I kind of want to switch mine from Time Machine to Invisible Man.
Oh, he said it's like 340-ish.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
What's Atonement?
What's Lord of the Flies? How long is that?
300.
It's like 290.
290,
was what it ended up being actually.
Which is why I set that cap because I was like, well, "This is."
I know there's some books that like we just can't read. We would have to like go and do like an adult platform, talk about it.
Well, I set the settings on here for Twitch and for YouTube that it's not intended for child audiences.
Oh really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, so we won't get hit for it.
We can show nudity on here.
Not on Twitch. Or YouTube.
Can we cuss?
But we'd have to get an OnlyFans account for that.
Can we describe nudity?
Oh, yeah.
I want to describe it in great detail.
In this movie, when that boy is getting his little butt spanked.
Oh, when he gets paddled.
What a weird scene.
What a weird scene. But they did it in both movies.
Do they?
Yeah, one guy, but it's like they're beating his.
In this one, it's like he's getting a spanking.
In the 90 movie,
where they changed the kid getting beaten, and, like tied up and beaten in the book to getting a spanking.
Yeah, with like a stick, and he's just getting like spanked by the stick.
Yeah,
but it happened in both movies.
I don't know if it's a spanking so much as it is pankins.
Pankins. Oh my gosh!
It was.
It's just a weird word to say.
I mean, there's not like almost anything for the 63 version to say because it is just like the book.
Yeah.
Just really low quality.
Yeah,
low
it
budget.
is.
Low
really
quality, like the book. Boring sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes
those
dry.
Are the 3 main points.
I watched it last night and I just like every time it was quiet, I'd just be like ding ding, like skipping.
I just kind of walked
like
off
until there was
like,
no more dialogue.
Yeah,
I was just like walking off while I was watching it.
The note that I made while watching it is this movie does a great job highlighting the important elements of the story.
Yes.
But the acting is so bad and it's so slow.
I will say that if someone wants to cheat and like not read the book and they're in school, like go watch the 63 version. It is like it's basically
you
the
could
book.
You could pass a test
except for the
points.
Lord of the Fly thing.
You can get some points.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could pass a test with maybe a 70.
So
and you
here's
could
a
pretend
question.
that you read it when talking to people about the book later.
Yeah.
Since I didn't make it to the end of the 63 movie, could you describe the Lord of the Flies scene?
Nothing.
They find an accordion on the beach, and they start fighting. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
There's no accordion
I
in
was
this
so
version.
confused.
Okay.
Like another damn accordion.
The Lord of the Flies scene was very similar to the other one. The pig didn't talk.
I don't
it doesn't
remember it
talk,
really
but it is definitely given more
creepy
emphasis.
because you can see the flies, and it kind of does a time lapse of the pig's face like rotting a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a little
and
like
Simon,
creepy.
like it shows him looking at it, and he's just kind of like mesmerized a little bit by it. So there's definitely more emphasis given to that. And
it
he
didn't
does.
talk.
And all of the murder
Doesn't
scenes
talk.
are basically like cut to. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know it's happening, but you don't see any of it.
Yeah, it's definitely like a
It was G.
what do you call it? They couldn't show it.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, I think the movie got like an X rating whenever it was released because
What?
it was children murdering each other, and it was the 60s, early 60s, I guess. But yeah, there's a great scene too. This is not towards the end, but Piggy telling the true story of Camberley to all the little kids who are gathered to listen. That was, I felt like, a highlight of the movie. Piggy just telling stories to the little ones, but
Yes.
Piggy's version of like an interesting story
He's
is
sitting there.
how Camberley got its name.
It's like Camberley
They
used
were
to
all,
be Cambridge.
Their last names were all Lee.
Yeah,
How
all
it
the towns
became
around were
Camberley.
Lee. Yeah. He was like, see, there was Cambridge town, and then the post office kept getting confused. And so he like told this whole story, and all the kids were just sitting there like, yeah, Piggy like mesmerized by him.
He's really like taking care of some little ones.
It was so funny. And he was like, and so they changed it to Lee because all the surrounding towns ended with Lee, and now you have Camberley.
I liked the face paint and stuff that Ralph, or there we go again, Jack and his buddies all put on. Like one of them kind of looks like a skeleton. He's just got like the lines where all your bones would be almost.
It's black and white, so it makes him look grave.
Oh yeah, and Jack's wearing that leaf mask over his face.
Yes, that was cool. He kind of looked like a wolf.
Yeah,
it was pretty neat. They were howling and stuff.
In the other one, the 90s movie, they're all wearing like crab claw necklaces and stuff like that. Like I don't know, it was interesting, but I definitely preferred this one.
Yeah.
To the 90s version. Oh, wait. The 90s version, though, they do have, like, paint on their faces that looks like they've been crying or something. And I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah. It was weird. They were clearly using some kind of, like, paint.
Not like mud.
Blood.
Yeah.
And it also wasn't...
Although they do show Jack, like, smearing the blood on one of the other kids as soon as they
I thought it
Yeah.
was blood because he gets it off of the knife.
The pigs were like way smaller.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't they tried to pass it off as blood, but it's clearly not blood.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They might have been like suggesting it was clay though.
But it didn't look like clay either.
From the river on
Clay's not that color. That was like a bright. That was like a cherry red that they were using.
Cherry
yeah.
red.
Yeah, cherry red. Spank them cherry red.
Piggy's death is like pretty much.
They do that in this movie.
Yeah.
the paint is not important.
It's really not.
So
it
not.
looks cool. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen to me. Piggy's death was like basically just how I imagined it, just like no gore. And he's like exasperated, like talking, and then boom.
Yeah, and
dead.
he was shouting the stuff though, like he is in the book.
Yeah.
He's just, do you want this or do you want to just hunt and
it
kill?
made sense too why he was like on the edge of that like cliff, and he like doesn't have his glasses, and he's kind of like stumbling around, like squinting and trying to yell up at them, so he keeps like kind of stumbling again. So that like made sense.
And then creepy Roger rolls the boulder down.
Yeah.
That dude's a
Man, that wasn't even a boulder. That was half of that mountain.
It was huge.
That was just so big.
And the sound effects for it were awful.
It does like quick cutting, like no, Piggy, and it's just
and then Piggy's gone. Like I mean,
and then you see like a little, either a stunt man or a fake like mannequin, just stuffed clothes or something floating in the water. Doesn't look great. doesn't look like that little boy at all.
See, that's like one of the questions that I have about just like entertainment industries, whether it's like for books, like publishing books or magazines or like movies and stuff, is like at what point, why were we like not showing gore in movies at that time?
Just considered indecent.
It wasn't
but
right.
we were
like, I mean,
like describing them in detail in text.
well,
I think it's just like a different.
there were plenty of books that were banned, like for years. So Lolita was banned in the United States forever.
Understandably.
Henry Miller's books were banned. There's a lot of things that there's a ton of censorship. So like, even so Romeo and Juliet, there's like a nudity scene from the 70s in it, and she couldn't even go and see her movie because she was 16, and she couldn't even go see the movie that she was like in, the actress, because there was nudity in it.
Nude?
Yeah.
And she couldn't see her own nude.
Nope. It was illegal.
What?
So
her
like
own
stuff like
naked
that.
body. You can't look at that.
Every time she takes a shower, there's like a censor bar.
It's a blur.
Someone's like, "No, you can't see that. You're too young."
Yeah,
We watched that in school. I saw boobs
I think it
in
was
school.
You could though,
They didn't
like
forward.
in newspapers, if there was a brutal murder or something, they could describe stuff like that. So I think there's just a difference between like describing something in text
And
and then a
seeing
visual
it.
of seeing like a child murdered. You know, it's a little different, and I think probably like religious groups and people like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
prevented
yeah.
Like
a
that
lot
was
of it.
one of the things like for me too, because like I thought about like how cool it would be to have film adaptations of like biblical stories, because the Bible has some wild stuff in it, and if you were to like depict even a fraction of
God,
what
yeah.
is in those stories, it's awful.
It would get pretty
There's Song of
bonkers.
Solomon, and it's just like,
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's what I hate. Like
going
every
like-
adaptation of the Bible is going to be like a watered down,
Yeah.
like super family friendly version.
And I
it
hate
would be
that.
so great to see like real. I mean, there are some stories that are like.
I don't know, the crucifixion is pretty
The-
dark.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
whole, the whole
The Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ. My
Yeah.
sister watched that and she threw up, like in the theater.
And what's the Scorsese
11.
movie with Willem
Like,
Dafoe
shouldn't have watched
playing
it.
Jesus?
Willem
my
Dafoe
gosh.
is Jesus in a movie.
Yeah,
What is that? I need to see it.
it is. It's pretty awesome. It's like a very adult and different take on the version that you kind of grow up learning. Many people grow up learning.
Yeah.
I guess. It's really good though.
Yeah, they like that's one of the things that always bothers me, because like that's why I was more drawn toward books, because it has like everything in it.
Yeah.
There's not anything left out
It's
at
the
any
last
point.
temptation
Yeah,
of
I mean-
Christ.
I've
That's
never
what
seen
is.
it,
It's really
but
good.
like there's a story that I wrote a script for Cain and Abel,
Oh, nice.
an accurate telling of it, but like through a spaghetti western lens.
Oh my
Like it's a
God.
spaghetti western version of it.
That'd be pretty cool.
That's a gory story, yo.
Gory
It's
story.
disgusting.
I mean, that's like how a lot of that kind of stuff. A lot of things get watered down because of like if we look at the culture back in like the 60s, like things were very like kosher and like PG, and
That was definitely like a
wasn't-
pretty dynamic time though, because I feel like the 60s started one way and then ended a totally different way. Free love, all of that. Like it flipped pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
like 58, 57 is when that all began, and then like 73 is when it ended.
Yeah.
73 was the death of the peace and love movement, the flower
Free
children.
love.
So yeah, I think it is a big thing, and you know that was like going into the 70s was when like you know like porn really took off,
Yeah.
like in a really big way.
Shout out to the
So,
70s.
Yeah,
I know it wasn't like super underground, and then it like permeated our culture.
And then there
So-
were actual like movie houses, like XXX houses that you could go pay and attend and stuff like that. So
Yeah, they
that's
showed
a
them in like
huge change.
theaters
Herman.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen the movie Lovelace? That's about
Yeah.
This-
What's her name?
Have you seen that movie?
Lovelace.
It's a good movie, but it's about like the porn industry then, and
Yeah.
like they had it like theaters and stuff, but like no one would talk about it because it was very like
Boogie
don't
Nights.
talk about it.
How do you just go to the theater and watch it? Like, I mean, like
Taxi
you're like by
Driver.
yourself.
Yeah. I
Has
love
a-
that. He
has a
takes her to
XXX,
the
yeah.
theater and he just doesn't understand like why it's a weird concept,
right?
To take a date there.
When was The Graduate filmed? 60s?
Yeah.
See, and they've always had like burlesque shows and different dance shows.
Yeah, it's 1967.
The Graduate.
Yeah. Yeah. So he brings her in a similar way to a strip club.
And I guess the big difference there is that he's trying to like end the date.
Yeah.
Because it's weird because he's been sleeping with her mother.
I mean,
yeah, but Travis in Taxi Driver is
he just doesn't
insane.
understand that that's not appropriate. Which is why the Joker takes a lot of influence from that movie, and he has similar
social ignorance.
Just not like he doesn't understand when to laugh at a comedy club and stuff like that. Which
is a lot of the different elements that we were really missing from Simon's character. Is the social awkwardness.
Yeah, just like how weird it was. Yeah. And
to bring it
what
back.
What I found super weird is in the old movie is that there was so much like child nudity in that, but like they're not going to show the murder scenes. Like I'm pretty sure like I saw some like little like thingies, like I saw some like things hanging out, and I was like
little ones.
Like I was like, that's like I can't.
Little
Disgust. Oh my god! But I'm like, why would you show that? Like it'd be cool with being like
the 60s.
Let's show some boy butts on there, but
boy butts.
But we can't.
Like I don't know. It was weird. What do you gotta say, Ren?
I was just gonna say. My favorite scene in the movie is right after Simon's killed and Piggy has the talk with Ralph that's almost lifted verbatim from the novel.
Yeah.
Where he's like, it wasn't what you said. Mm-hmm. It wasn't murder. And
yeah.
What's the
use in speaking about it? What's the use?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
That was verbatim like what it happened in the book, and that was a pretty good description. He kind of Ralph hung his head on that one and was very disturbed.
I do feel like both movies failed to capture the return to savagery, though. That's kind of central to the book. I don't think they quite moved past. It just feels like kids being delinquents or something. I think if they were a little quieter at times and just a little more savage, but again, I think both times they're filming children and they're trying to like be humane about it.
Yeah.
So
one of the big things in the book that took me, to a really creepy place was whenever after Piggy dies and Ralph had to kind of escape and everything like that, and he sees all of the boys in their paint, and there's a description there of Bill. And
random Bill. Yeah,
I laughed as soon as they named Bill early on.
Yeah,
and we talked about how they only named Bill like once or twice in the book, and but I think the second time that they mention Bill, that Golding mentions him, is whenever Ralph is sneaking back to the tribe camp, and right before he meets with Sam and Eric, and he sees Bill, and Bill's in all of his paint, and he's like, oh, that's Bill. And then he says, but that's not Bill. That's something that would kill me.
Yeah.
Like, that's like
basically
an entirely other entity. And so like it kind of got across this idea that the kids there's something different now. They're not their names.
Yeah.
They don't belong to those names anymore. Mm-hmm. And that they're to be like very weary of. And they, for me, like almost transformed them like into like legitimate monsters, really. Yeah. And
I did like the scene with Simon early on where he's trying to get out the words like he does in the book, where he's saying maybe the beast is us.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment, the kid not really being a great actor kind of adds to his like not being able to form the words or what he's trying to say.
Yeah, some accidental method acting going
exactly. on. Anyway, I thought this was definitely the better version.
I liked it a lot.
I think you also tend to give a little more leeway to black and white movies or older movies because they had a lot more limitations and stuff, and
and
they
were
usually
new art,
like
newer
the first version of something, the first adaptation of something.
Yeah,
and so, yeah, so stuff like the audio being pretty poor a lot of the time, I think it's still like it gets a pass. It's fine. But yeah, it was interesting seeing this movie adapted 2 different ways, 2 different time periods, decades, you know.
Yeah,
1990 version C-.
Yeah, I was about to say
and
verdict.
Give it like
That seems fair.
F.
I'd say C-.
1990 gets suck rating.
It's
it's
A solid suck.
Solid sucks.
Yeah,
Yes.
it sucks.
What about the 1960 version?
1963.
63, that's
Like
right.
a B.
B+.
I would say B.
B-
Yeah.
Straight up
Just
B.
a
now?
regular
I'll give it
B.
Okay.
Yeah.
I give it the plus for like the accuracy.
Good enough for me to continue watching it because I haven't finished it yet. So
Really?
yeah.
I'm done with it.
I'm a
Really good.
quarter of the way through, and I feel like I should just do my due diligence and really finish out this whole Lord of the Flies study.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you need to be immersed like we have become.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited too to, yo, GG Cookies, what's up, my guy? You Ginger Snap? Is that what you are? A Ginger Snap?
Oh, snap.
I'm excited to see what book we read next. Because
Let's
I think we really
Yes.
with Lord of the Flies have beat that story dead now.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Like
We have-
don't know how much more we could have talked
we
about
have
it.
dissected it.
My kid's gonna come home from high school and be like, "Mom, I'm reading this new book," and I'm like, "What's it called?" And she's like, "Lord of the Flies," and I'm like,
Just
I'm
watch the
pulling
movie.
up our podcast. Like, I'm like, hold on, you don't need to read it.
But your
Watch
kid's
this.
gonna come home and they're gonna be like, they're gonna have like a weight issue and they're gonna have really poor eyesight. And then he's gonna say that and you're gonna be like,
Piggy,
to
Piggy.
read this book in school.
oh gosh. Okay, so I think that's pretty much
Oh wait,
Concludes it.
one last little
What?
bit.
get it.
At the very end, when Ralph is running away, and he ends up on the beach, and there's the man sitting there. It kind of took me a little bit. It caught me off guard that the guy is wearing shorts, because that's
Yeah,
not how
me
I pictured
too.
it in the book. I was
Oh, yeah, he
expecting
just
something a
looks
little
up at
more
his legs.
respectable.
Yeah.
He-
But it's
okay.
just a dude.
And he doesn't even cry or anything.
The guy doesn't
He doesn't
say
say
anything to
anything.
him.
Nothing.
And I didn't like that. I felt like
No,
the
me
90
neither.
version ends a little bit stronger.
Mm-hmm. I
Because,
agree.
yeah, the guy doesn't say a single word. He just kind of looks shocked at the kids. And then Ralph does eventually, like, start crying. But it's, like, the very last
No one else does though,
seconds.
right?
I mean, aside from,
'Cause
like, Piggy when...
Jack just is like breathing
really
in the
say
back,
anything.
just like
Yeah.
being weird.
Yeah, I just didn't think, like, the emotional impact was there in either version.
It was just, he was
at the
just
very
staring
end.
up. This guy's wearing, like, basically all white naval officer and just, like, looking down at him, and he's just looking up, and then it kind of ends like that. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I would say kind of a better sort of version of this ending is in the movie Apocalypto. Did you ever see that?
Mm-mm.
Apocalypto.
Mayan or some tribe like that
Yeah.
running. One guy's running and he's being chased by members of another tribe. The very end, and he makes it to the beach, and they're like, he falls down, and they're gonna catch up to him and kill him. But they come out of the jungle and they all just stop, and it's like the people coming over from Europe
Yeah.
to start
So
settling.
yeah, that was a better ending.
and
like,
it's just like you could really see the impact. They don't know what to think of it, and like it's just, I don't know, it catches them totally off guard. And I feel like that sort of emotion is captured better like that.
So do y'all feel like us reading the book first ruined our perception of the movies?
Yeah.
Definitely. And
Yep.
that if we had not watched, if we have watched the movies first and read the book last, I feel like
That's
I
how
feel
it
like
always is.
no
That's
matter
what
the
we
la-
should
that
do.
would have ruined the book,
yeah.
Yeah.
because you would have known what was coming, what was going to happen.
Like the movie The Book Thief, I watched the movie before I read the book, but my sister had read the book before she watched the movie. And so I loved the movie and didn't like the book, but she didn't like the movie that much but loved the book.
Yeah.
And it was completely opposite.
See, I feel like no matter what, the book would have always ruined the movies. I think the book is good enough to where you would read it in any order, and
Yeah.
it would always be better than the movie.
Well, the book is the
movie.
original idea and the intent. And so I think that author's intent should be sacred. It should be like carried out throughout novels. Like if William Golding saw this, he'd roll over in his grave, like the 90 version.
Yeah.
Like he'd be like, that's not what I wrote. That's not Lord of the Flies. Like you can't put, like I can't believe they made money off of that garbage. Trash.
I do
Straight
think,
up trash.
I don't
YouTube
think
for
the
free.
63 movie made very much money because that production company made that movie and then that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh.
They never made another movie, so
It went
maybe they
into
didn't.
debt.
There was I do think there are some rare instances where someone adapts a movie or a book and they improve upon it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. That is true.
I
And
can't think of anything off the
I
top of my
can't
head,
think of
so
anything off the top
Yeah.
of my head either.
There's
Well,
that.
you know what? I'll actually say this. This is pretty big, and then
Lord of the Rings.
and I haven't put it in there, but maybe I will.
Oh, Lord of the Rings.
This is
I think
Quality.
well, the
is-
books are really good, and the movie
And Game of Thrones.
is amazing.
honestly,
Yeah, true.
Fight Club might be one of those.
Yeah. I was gonna say A Clockwork Orange.
You're obsessed with
It
that
takes
movie.
these.
You've been trying
It
to make
does
me
take
watch it
these
for-
like visionary directors, though. These people who have a clear style and a clear vision for
Yeah.
something to turn it into something great. I mean, like the Shining again, Stanley Kubrick. Like
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's a good
Stephen
movie.
King's book is pretty great, but there's probably a lot of like he's got his faults
Oh,
as a writer.
there's
for sure.
so much that is left out of that movie. It's a completely different like story,
Yeah.
and the fact that they like made a sequel, you can't even connect them like because there's so much like left out that there's like The Shining is like such a quality book, but I mean Stephen King, he's wordy. He does like too much. Like I mean he will like. One time I read this book. It was Cujo, and it was talking about this girl like eating this cereal, and she was throwing up like red dye, and like how everybody's freaking out because they thought all their kids were throwing up blood, and it had nothing to do with the plot. So he does stuff like that all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
so-
also
Cocaine.
like
It's
just
a hell of a drug.
put it. He's terrible at ending books.
Yeah, he's kind of notorious for that.
William Golding ended the book very well.
Yeah,
I feel like
it fits the theme of
Yeah,
the book.
The
I'm glad
ultimate-
that he got rescued.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a good comparison of the books and the movies so far. I feel like, and as usual, I feel like most of the time the movies will not compare to the book very well.
Yeah.
Did
They're
you
gonna
know The
fall.
Mummy is a book, and we could watch The Mummy, like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy?
Oh my
and read the
god.
book?
Is that? But see,
Yeah,
and
I
that's-
have it.
But
Somebody
those things get weird though because it's like they made the action movie The Mummy and then they made the movie adaptation of that particular book. But like I feel like The Mummy is almost an archetypal monster. Like it's like a classical monster.
Yeah.
Like there are tons of movies about like Attack of the Mummy or
No, it's like literally called The Mummy. Like, and it's like about like this guy who's like an archaeologist. And
that sounds
he's
really
like,
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's
We'll add it next time.
Somebody tweeted
How about
the
we
other day
read Journey
that-
to the Center of the Earth?
Oh,
Because
wow.
that's awesome.
It just-
Brendan
no, we watched the one with the rock in it.
Yikes.
Are y'all ready for
There
this?
was hold
Yeah.
on. Somebody
Are we
tweeted the other
doing-
day though that they really love Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz in The Mummy, which
Yeah.
I agree they're awesome together,
Mm-hmm.
and that every sequel should have been them fighting like another famous monster like Dracula or something. And I think that
Yes.
would have been such a better deal than
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
more Mummy
And they
movies.
almost did that. There was a series in which they did do that. It was a spin-off of The Mummy, and then the next thing they did was a Dracula thing, but it was in a different universe though. And they they lost all their funding for whatever reason, and that was like when Brandon Fraser like hurt himself. And I remember that they had a big contract with the production company to like continue doing these classical horror movies, but modernized. And I can't for the life of me remember, but I remember the last one was a Dracula type movie. It was like the Dark something.
Oh, Dark Universe.
Yeah.
That was Dracula Untold.
Yeah.
That was a dumb movie.
Yeah.
Just like a CGI action
Is it
stupid fest.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
Man,
That's a
that
book.
wasn't that bad of a movie, honestly.
What? Okay, so
Pride
when
and Prejudice.
I like
I was
him
teaching my
chopping
kids
And
about
zombies.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
I was teaching my kids about Abraham Lincoln, and one of the kids was like, "He fights vampires," and I was like, "No,
Oh,
he
man.
doesn't." And they were
Dude,
like,
the
"I
scenes
saw it
that were
on
pretty
TV."
cool where he chops down trees in one swing. those scenes are pretty cool.
The
in
Dark
that movie.
Universe is a funny story though, because it just like failed so hard.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be Dracula Untold. That didn't work out, so they said, "Oh, never mind. Forget about that. That's not actually the start of this universe. The Mummy is with Tom Cruise," and then that failed really hard too.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
What if?
never mind. But they even did like a publicity photo of like Johnny Depp, who was going to play the Invisible Man, and Javier Bardem, who was going to play Frankenstein's monster. All this stuff. Even Angelina Jolie was going to play the Bride of Frankenstein, and none of it. It just didn't become anything.
Yeah. See.
That's sad.
What is that? Oh,
But the
It's
Invisible
about
Man,
this
the new one, is
guy.
great.
that travels like. Basically, the world is ending, and like the dolphins know about it. and
Oh,
I can't
thanks
remember.
for all the fish.
Yeah, thanks for all the fish.
So long and thanks for all the.
Yeah.
What is that? Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Hitchhiker's
Galaxy.
Guide to the Galaxy. That's
Hey,
a book
that's a
too.
good book.
That is a really good
That
book.
would be
I've
a
read
good
that.
one to watch.
That one's good. We have all kinds of
We
good
don't have
ideas.
any common
How
ones.
many books are we drawing and then voting
Yeah,
on?
can we take
Should
a
we do
Three.
like 2?
We're gonna draw 3.
Okay.
Can we
3.
take a little look see inside the old hat? Just see what it.
We're gonna put them
it's
back in, right?
full.
Nice.
It's like nobody's watching. This is the most important part.
Guys, watch.
They're watching. All right, so we're gonna do this 3. Well, you know what? We'll draw 4, and then we'll vote amongst them because there's 4 of us.
Cool. Yay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna draw 1.
All right.
And we'll pass it
Are
around.
we passing it? Yeah.
Yay. That's so fun.
Wait. I'm scared. I don't know what I draw, but it was the one I feel like I may have recently done it. Okay, I'm
Someone said
scared.
That's a
I'm
classic book. They want Hitchhiker's Guide. That would be some levity to like all the heavy stuff we.
Are we not
Read.
looking at them yet? We're all gonna.
Don't look at them. Don't look at them. Don't look at them. We'll reveal them
Okay.
in a moment.
I grabbed it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
definitely
grabbed-
a classic book. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Douglas Adams. I think
Okay,
is.
I haven't read it. I don't know. I'm excited. It's go time. We should
What
just
are you
do
doing? You shoveling them?
A little
Ooh.
bit. Yeah. I think I've just got one. All right.
All right, so we'll do the first one. Brooke, start.
Oh. 1984.
Ooh, that's your pick.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
Okay. The Giver. I
Ooh.
like that one.
That was good. I already have one of those books, so
All right.
that's nice.
Dystopian futures.
All right, Ren, let's see what you got.
The Time Machine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right.
I don't know if you
Hey,
can even.
Maverick, you didn't rip these two
Doesn't
apart.
matter.
There's 2
Oh,
on
shit.
mine.
Oh, there it is. Oh no.
I just set this one up.
Is that?
What is it?
It's the Great
The
Gatsby.
Great
Oh.
Gatsby.
She didn't want to read that.
Wow, rude. Put that back in.
I drew The Shining.
Oh wow.
That's a
Oh.
long one.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
long?
that's kind of what I feel like.
Who put
too.
this in there?
It's your
What were
handwriting.
you thinking?
Maverick, you're
You
the
tell
one
me
who
that real
wrote
quick. I
it.
could draw it out.
All right, hold on. Let me.
Hey, The Great Gatsby was already drawn, Maverick.
No, you can't do 2 first.
that one got out. Let's see.
Put it back in later, I guess.
Gosh. What is this one? The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh man,
Ooh.
2 of my
Ooh, right?
recommendations.
How long is this, Brooke?
I don't know.
Here,
Guess we'll find out.
Any- look it
Anyway,
up.
let's go with these 3. If the Count of Monte Cristo doesn't go well,
How long is it?
I don't know.
I don't know the movie.
640 pages.
Whoa,
That's
Yeah,
double.
that's double what we read
Okay, never
normally.
mind.
The Giver is super short.
Give
And
it
it's weird. It has some really good dialogue. I read that in 5th grade.
Fahrenheit 451.
Ooh.
We have a lot of dystopian.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have 2 dystopian tales on our
Right
hands
now,
right now.
that one has my vote because I've read all these other 3.
Really?
I haven't
It's
read
the
this
only
one.
one I
You
read.
haven't read that?
No.
I
Never
have
read
read that book 4 times.
I already read 4 and The Giver.
Oh my
I
God.
ripped
Oh,
it.
are we all?
The Giver.
Yeah, some of it is not gonna focus.
Wait.
Mine focuses for some
There
reason.
are 100.
Come on, show it.
Oh wait.
It's
I'm gonna
too
do
white,
it.
the
The beauty
There are
exposures.
114
That's what I was
to
trying to do.
117 chapters in Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh my gosh.
Yikes!
It's not
Yeah,
even
never
showing up
mind.
still though.
So
Yeah,
we can't do
it
the
won't
Count of
show
Monte
up.
Cristo.
Like you're doing a makeup vlog.
Yeah. Hi guys, this is my monthly fave.
I'm using this one on my skin.
Can I come over here and do makeup tutorials?
Sure.
Can I do
my life.
makeup tutorials?
I thought actually about like renting this space out to people at some point, like to come do their podcasts and stuff.
Man,
I'm
that'd
just
be a
gonna
good
do
idea.
mukbangs.
You could honestly start like a little production company and
Yeah.
just like have people create content for you, and then you take like a percentage.
You're a content
of
farm,
whatever
Maverick. Become a content
whatever
farm.
royalties.
I would do that.
There you go.
So fast.
Okay, so I would like to read The Time Machine a lot, like really bad. It's a really good one. It's so good.
So your vote goes toward the Time Machine.
Yes, my
Okay.
vote goes towards The Time Machine.
I've never read that, and I've never heard of it.
Ooh, it sounds
It's
like Brooke is
really
gonna be the
good.
tiebreaker.
It's about a time machine.
What did you vote for?
I haven't yet.
What did you vote for?
Fahrenheit
Fahrenheit.
451.
Fahrenheit.
I'll read Fahrenheit 451, but I don't want to because I already done read it.
I don't want to read Fahrenheit 451 again because I've read it twice in school or 3 times in school.
It's like I don't want to read a school
I don't
book
wanna
right
read
now.
it again.
After we just finished
After we
Lord of
just
the
read a
Flies.
school book.
For shame, you two.
Maybe
For shame.
The Time Machine because I've never read it or heard of it. I do love 1984 though,
The
and I
Time
want to read it
Machine-
sometime.
I have the DVD of Time Machine. I'm pretty
got
sure.
one of the movies. There are 2.
There are
There's
2?
one from like the 60s
What's
and
it
then
about?
one from the early 2000s. It's about a guy who invents a time machine and goes time traveling.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like written at the turn of the century, like early 1900s. So it's someone from back then trying to predict what the future would be
Oh,
like.
I love that.
It's really cool.
I'm down with the time machine.
Yeah.
I will-
Yeah.
I'm down with the Time Machine
Oh,
too.
booyah!
see,
Yes.
It's my favorite book.
Wait, should
so-
we put all of our things back in the hat? for
Yeah.
Next time?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Except for the time machine.
Except for the Time Machine.
Get
we should
that
throw
outta
Lord of the
here.
Flies in there, see if we have to read it again.
Oh no, forget
Well,
that.
oh.
We're not doing that again. That'd be awful.
We act like we've never read it before. Oh, Lord
guys,
of the
it was
Flies!
Lord of the Flies by Henry Golding. This will be interesting.
Holding? I've never read that before. Never even heard of it.
Oh, The Time Machine is only 84 pages.
We'll
That-
finish it quick.
Is it really only 84 pages?
It says 84 page count.
That's so short.
That's so
Yeah,
short. We
we'll-
can do it like 2 shows. Boom. Then we can do another one.
just
Then we
gave-
can do
I
Fahrenheit.
just gave a
Yeah.
copy of that book to somebody as like a gift.
Wow,
You're
Maverick.
gonna-
Good
Be
toss.
an Indian
I
giver.
made
Get
it.
back.
So okay, so we're gonna be reading. Let's see, what is it? What are we reading?
The
Time Machine.
by H.G. Wells.
Yes.
Okay.
It's 4:20, y'all.
Oh,
blaze it.
We gotta go. Get off the sign.
Sorry, guys, gotta sign off.
guys,
All
we
right,
gotta
so-
go Blaze.
So let's do some planning then. So starting when? Or do you guys want to take a week off?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Should we
Good.
take like a week off?
I was
in
gonna
between
force
each
you
book?
guys to take a week
Yes.
off.
Oh,
really?
thank you.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Wow, you're
Thank
so
you.
sweet, Maverick.
Yeah, I was like, even if they want to, I'm still making them. So we're gonna take a week off. We will not be streaming next week. I'll be on the stream next week, Saturday, around this same time, and I'll be talking about a book, but I don't know which one. Probably A Farewell to Arms or something that I've read recently. And we'll be doing that, and I'll be chatting with you guys then. Everyone else will be taking a break. But we will come back in 2 weeks, and we will begin with The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And that's going to be super fun.
Are we reading all
Yeah,
of
I'm
it?
super excited.
And
one?
by that time, we should be back on our regular schedule. So we should be
Okay.
going Saturday at we'll go live at 8.
Okay.
So, because that seems to work for everybody, unless we need to reschedule if anybody's schedule has changed. And another cool thing about the Time Machine, I'm assuming that no one owns this book.
No.
No? Okay, well then in that case I'm going to do something really cool because I really like supporting and giving money to local businesses. I like to keep my money local. And so I'm going to go to the Burrowing Owl
promo.
I love
and
I will say I went there not too long ago with somebody, the one in Amarillo anyway, and looked for a copy, and they did not have a copy.
Right. So that's no problem, because I went and checked with them about other books, and they will order them in for us.
Oh, wow.
And they'll give us a small discount for having to order them in. And I'll be telling them that it's a part of a book club, so maybe we can get some advertisement stuff going on for them. So
free shirts.
Yeah. Or we'll probably just put like a paper of our like.
I do love that story.
We can
That's pretty
put
cool.
our book club in their store.
That would be cool too.
Wouldn't that be like cool if we could put that on there and then they could start subscribing to the stream and then everybody will watch it and we'll be famous.
Yeah, we'll just see. We'll see where it goes, because I do think it's a good idea to just keep reading books and sharing conversations with people, and I think people will really enjoy it, especially the people who aren't good at reading or don't want to read or don't have the time or are just lazy pieces of so it's gonna be I think we're gonna continue having fun with it, and as soon as we stop having fun with it, then we can like figure something else out. So
Cool.
yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Time travel's always fun.
I think I've watched the movie before.
Yeah.
It was
The movie is not very faithful to the book in a lot of major ways, but it is. I think it's directed by the like grand nephew of H.G. Wells.
That's cool.
Yeah,
he really dropped the ball on that one then.
Yeah. Well, it's like his own personal take on the story, I guess. It's different. It's weird.
Okay.
We'll just have to watch it and see.
Yeah.
It's cool. It'll be fun discussing that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna bring this to a close. We're 2 hours 10 minutes in. This is pretty cool. We are going to have all of the timestamps in the description below, and so you can go find those and click on the blue links, the numbers, and then you'll be taken directly to whatever topic is labeled, which is really cool. I should probably say that at the beginning of the video so that they know. It's kind of useless at the end if you watch through the entire thing. And you're like, oh wow, I could have just skipped through it. So yeah, that'll be awesome, and we'll see you guys later. This was the Fall Book Club. Thank y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.